What's up, everyone? It's Merrick TV back at you guys with another coffee break MMO podcast. I know we've been talking a lot about Guild Wars 2 the last few weeks, and there is an excellent reason for that. There's so much going on in the world of Tyria. I'm really glad you guys are here. We're going to be discussing a lot of the really exciting things coming in the future of Guild Wars 2. We basically had an enormous news drop, basically blog post from ArenaNet, which is maybe one of the most exciting, encouraging blog posts that we've ever gotten from the company in the history of Guild Wars or ArenaNet. I don't know. It's very exciting. A lot of exciting things are coming, and we have a lot to discuss. Again, I was told by my beautiful wife that when I do this introduction, I should also say hello to our fabulous YouTube viewers. Thank you guys for watching this in the future. Let us know what you think about the topic down below, and if you like this content, smash that like button. I've always wanted to say that. Subscribe, chat down below, all those good things. All right, let's get into coffee break. What should be this button? Yeah, it is. All right, guys. Again, my name is Merrick TV. I've been playing Guild Wars 2 for a bajillion years. I also met my beautiful wife directly below me, the shiny man named... I'm just kidding. Judy Vision in the bottom right. Beautiful red hair. You want a divorce? What? Oh, man. It's on stream forever, you guys. The divorce happened here. Judy Vision in the bottom right. She is also a streamer, plays Final Fantasy, a lot of crazy... I don't know, what do you call those? Indie games?
I play
point-and-click adventures.
Stardew Valley, point-and-click adventure games, Terraria, and Animal Crossing.
Also, she's going to be streaming more Guild Wars 2 coming up soon. We're getting way more involved in Guild Wars 2. We got the guild up and running with a ton of events planned. The guild hall is being built. She's intrinsically involved in that stuff, and she's going to be doing some Guild Wars 2 streams pretty soon.
Yes.
All right, and my right-hand man down below me is my down below hand, Cryptic Villain. Also met him in Guild Wars 2. Obviously, we're some Guild Wars 2 fanatics. He doesn't stream as much as he should, but he totally should stream. Right, chat? Shouldn't Cryptic Villain? He's so shiny. He should totally stream.
So shiny.
I am not going to be drinking coffee tonight, but I've got a Nutella milkshake. All right, guys, this is the best milkshake that has ever existed in the history of milkshakes, and I'll be drinking it right on top of Cryptic.
Yeah, he's only doing that to make fun of me. He knows I want one, and he's making me very frustrated. I can still kick you from the Discord. That's still
he has the power
here, buddy.
No, it's true. He actually could. All right, guys. So just to go over exactly what we're going to be talking about on Tuesday, we got basically, I don't know, what would you call it? It's basically that the expansion EOD that just dropped for Guild Wars 2 has been out for a few weeks, and this was sort of them finally catching their breath and touching bases with the community. There's been a lot of changes that were planned, some emergency changes that already kind of came into play in terms of class balancing. 9 new elite specs, of course, bring a lot of balancing to the game. Some things had to be addressed right away. And then, of course, the meta controversy, which we discussed 2 weeks ago. Too hard, too much orchestration, too much personal demand. A lot of things like that were updated and changed. So some of that was addressed, but also just basically a future roadmap for Guild Wars 2. That's basically what we got, right?
Yeah, we got a roadmap. We got some talk about future stuff, some interviews done with some gamers, PC gamers, or PC Mag. It depends on where you hit their site from.
That was a good article, actually, the PC Mag one.
Yeah, it was. It definitely hit a lot of the notes that were in the blog post released, but it also they were able to ask some questions and kind of dig into a few things that hopefully we'll be able to dig into here in this podcast as well. But yeah, I mean, we should dive right in. Obviously, we have our wonderful roadmap that has been released, and there's a lot of exciting things on there. I wanted to start with the thing that everyone is talking about, and I hope everyone's talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Season 1 coming back.
Season 1 coming back! Woo!
I can't believe
Cannot
that
contain my
happened.
excitement.
Well, because in our last coffee break, just last week, we were talking about this, or when we were doing the story, and I was bemoaning the fact that I was not able to play through Season 1 and talking about how I felt like I wasn't as connected as the people who did get to play through it. And then lo and behold, a few days later, they announced this. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's important to give context, guys. So season 1 came out a billion years ago, right? Like this is literally the first iteration of the Living World story when they planned this. And for those of you guys who don't know, Guild Wars was planning on doing this forever. It was actually a selling point. It was Living World for that reason. They called it Living World Season 1 because when they came out with the content, it was supposed to be a living, breathing event. Something was supposed to happen in the real world, not an instanced zones where you would go in with friends, but literally something would happen to the open world, would happen and then would end and go away, basically making it seem like the world was a living, breathing experience that you could really only experience if you happen to be there. And this was an exciting idea. I oftentimes relate this to underwater combat. For those of you guys who were around back then, I mean, seriously, right? Like, for those of you guys who were around at the beginning of the game, underwater combat was a selling point. People were excited. I mean, I was like bouncing up and down for underwater combat. It was this really interesting and cool idea that didn't pan out so well, right? And ArenaNet and Guild Wars 2 are sort of replete with things like that. They tried very new and different things, then some of them really worked out and some of them really didn't. To their credit, they learned from a lot of these things. I think that one of the criticisms that happens with ArenaNet is that they will come out with a system, see if it works. If it works, they'll go with it. If it doesn't work, they will just sort of drop it. They leave it in the game, but they don't really address it or update it going forward, right? I think that's kind of like a consistently said thing about Guild Wars 2 in general. And underwater combat is definitely one of those. Took them like 8 years or something to go back and try to refine it a little bit, and then didn't do much with it. But with Living World Season 1, it was incredibly exciting. This was not a failure. Living World Season 1 was awesome and very real. But then when it ended and people missed it, they weren't able to go back and do it again, and that was sort of like devastating. In fact, devastating just for being bummed out, but also for the continuity of the story. Junie and I didn't get to do it. So we've spent how many years wishing that they would come back and drop Season 1 into the game. This is huge.
Well, actually, NG makes a good point in chat. Does this mean there is going to be an instanced version of Old Lion's Arch? Is that what that actually means? Because that would be amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
Two things. One, there already is an instanced version of Old Lion's Arch. They fixed that in the story a few years ago, maybe more than that. I forget. When they put in New Lion's Arch for a while, there was this weird period where when you did the story, their New Lion's Arch was what you got, which made no sense.
There's still some like personal story events where you end up in the old one, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I mean.
But those are very small, right?
Yeah,
They're tiny.
So that's what I mean. There is an instance in the personal story. They fixed that. So that in the personal story long ago, they fixed it so that you can go in there and see Old Lion's Arch. You're obviously playing the old personal story.
I still like it better.
You can see it. In these new Living World Season 1, I do as well. In the new Living World Season 1, there will be instance content with Old Lion's Arch, and we will get to talking about that. One of them is going to be the battle for Lion's Arch.
Yes.
But we should start with episode 1. We know, so we're getting 5 episodes, right? I think it's been confirmed that we're getting 5 episodes of Living World Season 1.
I think that's right. Yes, Dragons.
Episode 1 has already been confirmed to be Flame and Frost. We're getting it in like 2 weeks, right? Like
April 19th or something, isn't it? It's like 3 weeks.
So 3 weeks. Can you believe we're getting content that quickly?
Soon, dude. I mean, who? No, I can't believe it. Absolutely am stunned that that's true. They did confirm right away that it was going to be Season 1 before Season 6, but that there is going to be a Season 6, but Season 1 first, which makes perfect sense. And it's so exciting. My jaw fell open when I saw the date of the release of that.
Exactly. I couldn't believe it. I was like, ArenaNet actually giving us content in a reasonable release cycle. What's happening?
The views of Cryptic Villain are not necessily those of Merrick TV. No. Merrick TV for ArenaNet partner. Pretty pleased. You guys do no wrong.
He wants to be an ArenaNet partner. Don't believe him. No, I mean this is awesome stuff. And episode 1 is supposed to be Flame and Frost.
Yep.
Which is Bram and Rox. There's that whole Molten Furnace. Basically, like if anybody did the Molten Furnace Fractal where you have Bram and Rox, it's basically that, but there's a lot more story and things play out a little differently.
It's literally where you meet them, isn't it? I mean, because for those of us who came in at Season 2, we were kind of disjointed. Like, Junie and I played from the beginning of this game, but we missed Season 1. So when you come into Season 2, you're like, oh, hey, all of you guys, we're friends, right? I don't really know who you are.
Yeah, it is a little disjointing. And yeah, it is where you meet them. It also, it's funny. I've been playing through Season 2 this last week, trying to get the Legendary Amulet. And season 1 and 2, they don't do a good job of this, but they're pretty much the only seasons where they basically show you the personality of these characters and get you to understand like the base character before we start getting progression. And it's funny to me that season 2, obviously we didn't get. Season 2 is kind of weird and rushed for Heart of Thorns, but season, and obviously people can't play season 1, but the little snippets in there that show you these characters' personality, they're the only way that you can tell that all these characters are teenagers. Rox is a teenager. Ram is a teenager.
How are you going to start with those and not talk about Timey, who's like 10 years old or something? Okay, so Cryptic, I know you're doing this too because Cryptic and Phoenix and Junie and I just so happened to randomly start the, what are they called? Return to achievements for the legendary amulet. And we bumped into each other in the middle of the night. It was like 3 a.m. or something in Dry Top. We're like, hey, what the heck are you guys doing here? Because we never leave the aerodrome, and we're working on those achievements. So we're doing the past story for the first time in heck of years, right? Like a long time. And I walked up and I was like, Junie, something's wrong with Timey. Why is her model so small? Because she was on an Asura. I'm like, go stand next to Timey. Go stand next to Timey and like look at the height difference. And I was like, why is she so small? She goes, she's a kid. Like in the story, it's been a ton of like, it's been years now. Yeah. So like she's grown up and it blew my mind. Do you remember when Casimir used to get the hiccups when she'd get nervous? I mean, like so many things that I'd forgotten that I love about
everybody
that.
used to call you boss for that.
Yeah, they called you boss. I made the same comment, dude. I was like, wow, I'm the boss. It's hilarious.
Yeah, but so episode 1 is going to be about meeting Bram and Rox.
Flashy, really.
There's some. I don't know. See, the real question is, and it's going to be the question with every single one of these episodes. What exactly are we getting? Are we getting just the instance content that came along with these things? Are we getting event stuff? That, I mean, we seem to know we are because, spoilers, episode 5 is Battles for Lion's Heart. So are we getting event stuff that is going to be turned into instance content? Are we getting everything? There was open world
There was a lot of open world stuff. I was just going to say, like, are they going to make open world stuff into instance stuff? I mean, how are they going to do that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions here. And we really don't have any of the answers. The only things that we know for sure is that we are getting the story version of Molten Furnace.
Yes.
And the Molten Boss.
And we're getting the Battle for Lion's Arch.
And yes, we're getting
that's the other thing we know.
Which is going to be a strike with a CM.
Strike! Sorry, I'm very excited about that.
I'm excited as well. I'm glad that's coming back. That was the best part of the best Living World season we got, in my opinion. Yeah. My concern though is that one of the cool things about it was the fact that it was a open world meta, where you're basically you're trying to break into Lion's Arch because you're like it's surprise attack. You have no idea what's going on. You're trying to get inside. Then you're trying to defend it, and then you're trying to repel Scarlet, and it's just a building stage of things.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. I mean, this could turn out amazingly as a strike. I'm also concerned about what it could lose by becoming a strike. I mean, and I guess that's the first question is, what do you want to see from each one of these? Because I mean, episode 2 with South Sun Cope, that is almost entirely open world. Nightmare Tower, that was almost, the tower itself wasn't, but the stuff surrounding it was all open world. I mean, but there's going to be things here that there's
huge question marks that we're not going to be able to know until they end up coming out. It's hard to even be skeptical about this because I'm so darn excited. Yeah, this is something that I've just wanted for so long. Like, obviously, what they're going for here is maybe not quite 100% aimed at us, right? Like, we should keep that in mind. One, we're these old players who've gone through the story. We're at the forefront of the game. We know for a fact, we haven't started this topic yet, but we're going to, which is going to be Steam release. And the aim of trying to sort of point this experience at new gamers. That's their hope, right? Brand new players to Guild Wars 2, that's the dream. And that's what we are sort of hoping to get. So what we can be sure that they're going to do with these things, maybe not for event, like inclusion of all the cool aspects of the tangible event, but what we can be absolutely sure is the inclusion and continuity of the story. So all the most important story bits are going to be there because that's what they're really focusing on, right? They're trying to close that gap that's been there in the living world, in the story exploration of the game for 1,000,000 years. So that's one thing that we can be sure of. And the second thing that I'm so excited about is that we're already seeing exactly what they said they were going to do. They were going to be bringing strikes forward, right? Strike missions are going to be the new thing. No more raids, but what they're doing is they're taking this old content, they're taking a story experience in there and turning it into a big, awesome 10-man content combat fight with a CM that they said they're going to do. I mean, this is what I've been wanting, man. I mean, this is actually amazing that they're doing that.
We've been promised, I guess we've only been promised one CM from this, but I doubt it's just going to be one. I don't know. I feel like we're probably going to get more if any of these other ones have strikes. I feel like any strike going forward from now on is going to have a CM component. And I think the cool thing about this is that, you know, we talked about the big problem with strikes when they first came out is that it doesn't really lead. There's nothing to, you know, like we said, oh, strikes are going to be the thing that gets people into raids. You know, there wasn't really a breadcrumb trail there. Like there was a structure, but the structure had huge gaps in between it. This kind of starts filling those gaps because people get out of the personal story and dungeons and
are already level 80.
Yeah, and the Zaitan fight.
Yeah.
And now they're going into Living World Season 1, and they're going to get out of Living World Season 1 with the very least having played one strike, at the very least.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Maybe a strike with the CM, right? Maybe they've done the CM too, you know? Right. That's not going to be forced upon them, but maybe at least they know this content exists and that it is 10-man and that it requires group strategy and, you know, planning and boons and buffs and all that stuff. Right.
Group composition, all that stuff. I mean, but that's the breadcrumb thing that you're talking about. It's true. It's funny because I could do a whole podcast on just this, like strike missions and their efficacy. Were they like they were initially planned on being a ramp that led people from open world and dungeons into 10-man raid content. It was supposed to be closing the gap because there is and we talk about this on stream a lot, right? There is a freaking Grand Canyon of a gap between what the regular game experience is and the demand on the individual player is from 99% of the game, and then walking into their first raid, it's a shock. It's a culture shock. It's a personal expectation shock. It's a honing of your build and practicing of a rotation. All these things. It's so staggering for most people to come into, and so strikes were supposed to be something that were doable daily. You could get a lot of practice. They were easy, and they were going to be and sure enough, the first strike is a dummy, right? Like it just you walk into and kill it. You don't even need a group composition or anything like that.
No.
I think that they started good. I think that they fell off later. I think they lost track of what their goal was when they were coming up with this in the first place. But the breadcrumb itself, for me, that's most successful is that they're no longer walking in and being like, oh God, Doom, what is Doom? This is terrifying and I don't know what this is. Like at least they know these encounters. They've seen them. They've done them. They've done the story, the open world guys, the casual players. This is their bread and butter. This is what they do. So when they walk in and they do this event and they know what that's like and they had fun with it, and then they get to go in with 10 of their friends instead of, just, doing it solo or whatever, they are way more attached to that fight and way more likely to want to experience it. So I think it's a success either way. And you're right. Going forward, if they do this throughout the whole thing, I think this is how they fix that problem with the efficacy of strikes. So it should be good.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I guess on that beat though, before we dive into maybe the episodes a little bit more, do you think, or what do you think the new strike is going to end up being? I personally think it's going to be the Prime Hologram, which is the final fight at the end of Battles for Lion's Arch. There has been speculation though that it is going to be a revamped version of the final fight against Scarlet after you beat the Prime Hologram, which I don't think we need that, right? Like,
you'd rather it be the Prime Hologram?
Yeah, I mean that was the big awesome fight, right?
Yeah.
Like the Scarlet.
That's the more strike feeling fight. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the Scarlet fight was really just like you had already. It was a story beat, and you had already done the challenging part of, you climbed up her machine, you beat the Prime Hologram, you did all the stuff, and you defended Lion's Arch, and it was just kind of like the the carrot or the candle on the cake, right? The icing on the cake. It was just the
wow. It took a while to get there. It was the carrot on the cake. We could have some carrot cake. No, it's fine. Carrot cake is good.
Right. Carrot cake's delicious, and it has icing on it, cream cheese icing. So.
Look, Easy Roka in the chat, by the way. Big shout out to Easy Roka, Guild Wars 2 legend in there. He says, and I've heard him speak really negatively about strikes, right? Like I know Roka's take on that. They've done a great job with the EOD strikes. I hope they continue just like that. Roka could not agree more. I also want to flash back to Flashy Flu's question about whether the strikes are going to be more like Freyner or Whisper, stuff that are actually boss raid encounter like fights, right? Or they're going to be more like Forging Steel, which are long drawn out story event sort of things that are no fun. Everyone that's ArenaNet should, they got to know when people are in the LFG saying like all strikes that don't suck. And it's, everyone knows what they are, right? No one wants to go and do those again. And so my take on that is that we are dealing, and this is a broader topic, of course, but we're dealing with a new ArenaNet. We just are. This is a brand new ArenaNet, which is why we're going to get into this discussion also. Well, I mean, we were going to talk about Catalyst, right? Like I was so sure that they were going to absolutely address Catalyst right away. And they did. And if you go back through the history, for sure that they don't always do that kind of stuff. They're kind of disconnected. But I don't believe that they're going to be making certain kinds of mistakes going forward, at least in big improvements. And the new EOD strikes were a good show on that, right? There weren't any that were added that people don't like. Everyone likes all the new strikes for the most part, right? I'd say that that's a pretty big success, especially with CMs around the corner. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that we're not going to see a lot more Forging Steel type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we don't. I said that was optimistic of you, but I am also in the optimistic camp. I'm just gonna hide it until.
And you guys don't know Cryptic like I do. That's a big deal. He's not been optimistic about ArenaNet and Guild Wars 2 in a long time. It's been a long time.
That's true. It's been a long time. But I guess we can wrap up some things here with Living World Season 1. Is there anything from this that you feel is missing? We got Flame and Frost, South Sun Cove. Flame and Frost is episode 1, South Sun Cove is episode 2, which, by the way, Canuck, that's where I don't know if that's where you first get introduced to Canuck, but that's the first time you have a real confrontation with Canuck. He's actually your enemy.
That's the other thing, right? Because when you first, come season 2, you already have a relationship with Canuck also that you don't really know, right? So these are all like weird, disjointed things. This is really important.
It is.
I hate whatever Merrick needs me to hate for discussion purposes. Thank you, Azure. Other than that, new strikes are fun. I wish everyone was like Azure. Azure also just complimented the mustache, so I'm just going to say champion. How much Ko-Fi money will it take to keep it, says Azure? A lot? Question mark?
A lot?
There's news on that. I'll let you guys know in a little bit.
Oh, I do have. I don't know if it's tested yet. I probably still have to test it, but I added something fun on the Ko-Fi with the stream.
Stop it.
All pool our money together. We can make sure that he never gets rid of the mustache.
Please. This can't be just like part of the new identity. I don't know what I can do. Look, do you guys see, by the way, if you haven't noticed it, look above me. Do you see my little pony dude up there? He now has a mustache. Not only does he have a mustache, there's a mustache on the cup on the television that he's holding in his hands. This is done to us, okay? This was... I blame Cryptic and Tiffy. And Cryptic.
Hey, Marek, by the way, do you have an alert box up, or did we take that down for coffee break?
We took it down for coffee break.
Oh, okay. Then, never mind.
Episode 3 is Dragon Bash and Atherblades. I don't know if they're going to do this simultaneously with the Dragon Bash Festival. It would make sense, I guess. I don't know. I remember the least about that part of the season because it was kind of like a festival-based thing.
Right.
So I wasn't super interested in it. Episode 4, we're going to get Tower of Nightmares, most likely. That'll be awesome and probably could be another strike. I don't know if I know the Marionette's in Fractals already, but
yeah.
And then obviously episode 5, Battle of Lion's Arch. I don't know. Is there anything from there you think is missing? There were other things like the Queen's Jubilee. We had Clockwork. Tequatl.
So some of that we've seen come back, though, right? So that's the other weird thing about this, because we've seen the Jubilee. Over the years, they've tried to fix this gap without just fixing it, right? Like that's what's really weird. Like they have had limited resources. You got to give it to ArenaNet. It's kind of amazing that they've accomplished what they've accomplished in the last couple of years, given their situation. But they have tried a bunch of Band-Aid stopgaps or like little offerings to try to like fix it, because everyone has always wanted season 1. So we've gotten Jubilee come back, right? That's been a thing. They've done the Clockwork. They brought the Clockwork thing back in a giant instance thing, right? That they just did the Clockwork. What's it called? Forgot the thing when it's called. The big fight that they brought back. in instanced content. Chat, help me out here.
Why?
Hopefully the cryptic users know what I'm talking about.
vaguely know what
Marionette,
they're-
the marionette,
yes,
the marionette. Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
So like little things that they've brought back with the attempt to sort of fix this kind of stuff. But this, I think what's so big about this is that it's really finally going to fill all of this void. Yeah, Twisted Marionette. Thank you, Dragon. I could not remember the name of this.
Is that where the Karka, with the Karka being all over Lion's Arch?
No.
Or is that something different Fleshy Flu was
is in
referencing?
Fractals. They added it to Fractals, but that was Tower of Nightmare stuff. I thought there was another Clockwork thing. Like, remember you were collecting Watchwork sprockets?
I mean, when you ask me if I remember, it's how well I remember various YouTube videos because I didn't play season one. So
exactly.
like we've looked it up a few times, trying to kind of get a good grip on it. And there's of course that silly NPC thing that is in Lion's Arch you can watch, but it's not enough.
It's been so long, I honestly don't remember a lot of it. Tequatl was a big thing. Tequatl came out during this time. I don't know if there was a whole set of achievements that are gone now that you can't get. You can't get like a mini or the wings of Tequatl anymore. There was a backpack.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I mean that stuff that I feel like if there's anything missing from this list, Tequatl, and then maybe like the I don't care about the probes. That was dumb. That was open world content. There was a History of Scarlet like side thing that they did. There may be in the game now, but I would like that expanded upon. Like learning more about Scarlet's past was very interesting to me.
Because Cryptic and I feel the same way. One of our favorite characters in the whole game is Scarlet. Like I think Scarlet is just incredible, such a great character. But the one thing that we can absolutely say is that things like that you just brought up, like the wings, they address that. They said the rewards that have been out of reach for so long, they were part of that entire process, are now going to be brought back. So like that was addressed. So if there's something that you've had your eye on for a long time from season one, chances are it's coming back. Chances are there's going to be more added to the stuff.
There were so many things that I wanted from season one, and I don't even remember what half of them are at this point because it's been so long.
And they tried to fix some of those too. And like every once in a while they'd bring something weird back, right? Like the do you guys remember when the what are they called? The robotic wing things that have like the two pair of wings and then 4 and then 6, you know what I mean? They glow different colors. You had to get what are those called? Those things were impossible to get. They were so expensive. The Aether Blade backpacks or whatever they were. Yes. And you can get them in like blue and green and orange, I think, glowing stuff. But those were, for a while, impossible to get. Yeah, there's a plain one too.
Because you take the cores and that's what changes the color.
The Watchwork Night cores or whatever it's called.
Which, by the way, that has one of my favorite flavor text in all, because I love season one. And I have that backpack.
Kit, I agree.
It when it came out originally. But Tempered, there you go. The
Tempered Spinal Blades, Flying Triangle, you champion.
But it has one of my favorite flavor texts, which I'm quoting this off of memory, so I may be wrong, but it is it was like
Me Too Triangle.
And on that day we faced Scarlet at our door, and we won, something like that. And it's like it's like we're just reminding you of the achievement of you defeating Scarlet. Like she came to your doorstep and you defended it,
kicked her butt.
Yeah, but how about like so stuff like that has come back, but obviously we didn't get the Tequatl wings aren't back, and my title that I still rock to this day,
Savior of Lion's Arch.
How do you feel about people probably getting access to that stuff again? I mean, the title is definitely. I would be shocked if the title isn't available again. I feel bad, dude. I feel like I got a rare title that not many people have anymore, that nobody rocks, and now everybody's gonna rock it.
That is such a common debate these days in MMOs, because MMOs are so old now that there's so many of those things. Like I just watched the community of World of Warcraft tear itself apart over the bringing back of previously ungettable ever again kinds of things. And there's a lot of players that get really excited. You know, there's some people that are super bummed when they will never get something ever again. And then some people that are like, I did that way back then and I was special. I want to be special forever. So don't make me not special. So I see both sides of it for sure. But in the spirit of bringing season one back because people missed it, this is what we're trying to do, is make it so that people don't feel left in the dust with that kind of stuff anymore. So I think in this particular case, yes.
No, I mean, I think I am in the minority. Everybody else that I've talked to about this has been like, no, bring it back. Even people that have all that stuff.
Well, I was going to say you're the minority because you have it in the first place.
I'm in the minority. I mean, I don't know. I don't mind tangible rewards coming back. I feel like things like titles are something that is easily
Yeah, that's fair.
easily addressed, right? Like
Yeah.
you could still include that title, but people that have the original one get it in a special color, right? Like it becomes blue if
Yeah.
you had it originally. I don't know. I feel
Actually,
like that's
that's
something
cool.
easy.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And and Guild Wars 2 is not any kind of stranger to rewarding people who've been around for a long freaking time, right? Look at the birthday system. The birthday system gives you some of the coolest things that come in this game, period. And you just gotta wait. There's no bypassing that stuff at all.
Well,
You gotta
right.
wait years and years for some of those things.
Well, not just that, but also just the achievement point chests also.
Oh,
But
God,
I
those
think
two.
the fact that there is a possibility, even if it's 10 years down the road to get it, people are able to like feel better about that, right? Than something that was cut off and then is not ever available again.
That's
Even
true.
if technically, they have no way of getting that. Because like
Yeah.
even 10 years, like it would be way too long and there's no way they're going to get it. But the potential is there. And I think that sits better with a lot of people.
So
Yeah.
I want to talk about what Azure said in chat here. So I actually agree with you, Azure. I want, for context, Azure is talking about how the original goal of Living World was that it literally changed the world that we were living in. As the world changed, as the story progressed, the world changed along with it.
What's up, Cyraven?
I wish all of season 1 was about changes. Every story step that happened, there was a change with it. The election for the new captain in Lion's Arch, that had a bunch of ramifications.
Yeah,
There
dude.
was
And a
everything.
player vote. Let's not forget
Yes.
that was an actually player decision that was given, that you could actually show off who you voted for and everything. Where's that? I want that kind of stuff to come back. That was amazing.
I want that kind of stuff to come back. I think there is room for some of that to come back. It will never be the same as it was because ArenaNet has learned that the time investment to go back and change content that is already existing in that kind of capacity is not going, like, putting the tower in Kessex Hills, all the pylons that were all over the place, redoing the entire Lion's Arch map. Like, I just don't think that we're never going to see the world change again to that extent. Like and I think that was part of the reason why Living World Season 2, there was a huge gap, and then Living World Season 2 wasn't as good as Season 1. They learned that it was just so much effort and time, and it took away from what they were able to do in their follow-ups.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I want us to have more of that, and I think the most we will ever get is maybe another player vote, right? Where there is nothing that they have to change on their end. It's just, here's some story beats. You guys vote on where you want it to go, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's elements where you could bring that back for sure without making it quite as drastic as it was before. Season 1 just needed to be brought back because it wasn't just elements like that. It was like full-on story that made the rest of the story not make sense. Yeah. And from like from a developer standpoint, especially right now going into trying to appeal to brand new players, this needed to happen. I want to throw back to what Kit said. I have said forever that new players were missing out on so much story since they couldn't play Season 1. But then the next thing she said is super important, which is that they doubled down on it when they brought back Mytrin, Scarlet, the Aether Blaze, and the entire story in Cantha. Right? This was like not only the brand new players are going to be confused, but even the high end players. I would say that most people who are playing the expansion today were not around for Season 1.
And
most.
that's what. Right, and that was like my biggest complaint last week was that I just didn't feel like I was as connected. So the fact that they did this, and if they hadn't done this announcement, then it would have been like, well, then why did you make this such an important part of the Cantha story?
Yeah, obviously, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt because I want to, because they must have had this design already in place, right? They must have been like, we're going to bring back Season 1. Like they must have done that. Why would they? Why would they go to the one thing in the whole game that can't be referenced by people and make that the real crux of and it is, let's not get it twisted. It is the center core of the EOD story, is the one bit of story in Season 1 from 8 years prior that could not be redone. I have to believe they had this in mind. And I want to bring that to basically acknowledge what this update meant. I mean, we're going through individual details about this update, but I really want to talk about the significance of this update in the first place, because basically this was them sort of addressing a lot of things that I think that the community just really needed to hear, a lot of things that are really important to a lot of people here. I know that EOD was sort of like a question mark about how well it was doing, right? There was like this weird element because we were going through these zones and really appreciating the story, but there was no one in the zones, right? Like everyone, it was empty. Did you guys in chat, you guys experience this? Judy and I are going through this game thinking, oh God, this is so exciting. We waited 4.5 years for this new expansion. Are we the only ones playing it? Like, has no one else come back to play this game?
Well, and that's the thing. It felt so empty, and it was kind of cool because it made you feel a little bit more immersed, right? Because there's really nobody else around, and maybe this seems a little bit more, immersive. But then at the same time, how are you supposed to finish any sort of multiplayer event or meta event? And then as we kept playing, we were like, wait, it feels so isolated.
Well, it was also strange on top of that because we would keep running into people that we knew were playing, right? Like me and you, Merrick and Judy,
kept bumping into each other
over and over and over and over. And we
in these empty maps, which were otherwise empty, right? Except for us.
Are we the only ones playing this game?
That was the weirdest part that made it seem like it was not some sort of weird coding thing, like I think is what they inevitably said it was, right? That it was some sort of coding issue that was going on.
Well, I think the official line put out by Ruby was that they intentionally did it in order to they intentionally created left maps open longer and prevented people from joining maps that had a certain number of people in it in order to reduce the load and to ensure people had a good play experience. I think two things that made them underestimate the effects of this is one, I don't think they realized just how wide-reaching what they were doing was going to actually impact things. And then two, I also think that they were coding it based off their largest player base, which is EU. And we're in NA, and I think that the number of people...
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think because EU actually had less complaints about this. And there were actually people complaining that they were having server issues on EU. Whereas in NA, we just had empty maps and no one could do metas. I think they just put in a wholesale solution and didn't actually do any kind of math about, okay, how is this going to affect people in different regions? They just did it based off of a total player population and didn't realize their largest population is in EU. So
that's interesting. I doubt anyone here, it's pretty late for an EU player to be in here, but it does make me wonder if that's the case, because I mean, so the number one thing that we had in the discussion here for tonight's podcast was the perceived health of Guild Wars 2. And that is an incredibly important thing. I've talked about it before, that I thought that EOD coming out right now was sort of insane. The 4.5 years or almost 5 years we were waiting for an expansion, and almost any other time in that 5 years would have been a better time for the game to come out, in my opinion, because we've had such an incredible time for gaming this last couple of months with all the new things that came out, right? The new WoW patch, the Endwalker, Elden Ring, Lost Ark. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And so I was seeing a lot of people in my friends list, people that I knew for sure were really big Guild Wars 2 players playing other games. And then I'm going into the zones and I'm seeing that they're empty. And so like the perceived health of the game for me was in question. And I think it's really important that everyone acknowledges the fact that the perceived health of a game is just as important as the actual health of the game, right? Like how the player base perceives the success of an expansion or how well the game is doing really affects how well the game does. The most dangerous thing you can ever say about a game that is not dead is that it's dead. If you're like Guild Wars 2 is dead, right? Like if that gets spread around, even if it wasn't dead, it's dead now. When Cryptic and I have talked about that before, it's like the thing from Doctor Who. Yeah. No one in chat's gonna know that reference, but it's totally true. Like you kind of say this something is true.
Everyone should know that reference. What he's talking about in Doctor Who, David Tennant, the David Tennant Doctor. I forget which season it is. 10. No, I know it's the 10th, but I don't know. It doesn't matter.
What season? No, I don't know.
I know 10 is the 10th Doctor, obviously.
Okay. David Tennant. David Tennant.
Yeah, it works. But he just went through this whole like thing where he, scared off these aliens that were invading. And then the prime minister at the
clashing
time,
with the prime minister.
Yeah, the prime minister at the time disagreed with his decision and went against his decision and killed or blew up the aliens. And Tennant was all, the 10th Doctor was frustrated about that and was like, okay, I'm no longer supporting you as prime minister. But instead of going out and telling a bunch of people or anything, he's like, I'm going to end your prime minister re-election campaign because she was coming up for re-election.
He just tweets, right, or something like that. What was it?
He was like, I'm going to end it with one word, and he walks over to her assistant, someone on her side, her secretary,
Angie,
and whispers in his ear, "Doesn't she look tired?" And that was it.
Doesn't she look tired?
Her whole campaign was over with. And that's all it takes. And the same thing exists here in Guild Wars 2. Obviously, that's a fantasy show, but the same principle applies in real life. It just takes one person saying the right thing about a game, and in this case, is this game dead? And that's all it takes, and people will run with that because that's a negative perception that is easily, you can easily see that. You can hop into a game and see there's no one here. This game must be dead.
Right, and especially since we're paying such close attention. A brand new expansion came out in the midst of all these other games. Like, how well's the game doing? And no MMO ever likes to release its statistics. So we don't know. We just have our own little anecdotal things to go on. And it looks like the zones are empty, so it looks like it's not doing well. And that's really, really bad because MMOs are an interesting genre, right? MMOs are a hobby. They're not just a game, and they're a hobby that goes for years and years and years. Like, this game has been out for almost 10 years now. It is an enormous investment. And so for the idea, basically what this equates to for me, what this post does for me is to say, hey guys, if there was any question, the game is doing well. The game is not only doing well, it is 3 times the player base that it was, 3 years ago or whatever it was, or double the player amount that it had 3 years ago. That's crazy. Now, of course, we've got COVID happening in between, but then the next thing is that EOD has outsold POF. Right? That POF was 4.5 years ago, well before all of that. That means that while the COVID change to lifestyle is sort of winding down, the game player base is continuing and people are actually enjoying this expansion, bought it, and it's doing well. Not only that, we're in this for the long run. Let's introduce the team. We're bringing back things that you wanted before, and we're planning for the future. There's a brand new expansion. What it's basically saying is, guys, it is okay to invest in this game long term because we're investing in this game long term. That's what that whole message equates to, and it means the world to a community who's very passionate about this game but has been worried about it for a long time. And so, the what?
No, I was just saying we were extremely concerned.
Yeah,
that, not
with
only
good
would
reason.
this be the last expansion Guild Wars 2 ever got, but that it was going to be a financial failure. I mean, if you go back and watch our earlier episodes of the podcast when we were talking about the expansion releasing, we were very concerned that this would be the end of Guild Wars 2. That we weren't even sure if we were going to get more Living World, let alone another expansion.
There were real question marks there, right? Like we just didn't know.
And here we are. I think it's a huge statement to come out and say, we are committed to doing another expansion. You're going to get another expansion, when they have never in any of the past 3 expansions come out and committed to doing an expansion until it was basically right around the corner.
Which has always been a complaint of the community anyway, because they don't build up enough hype about it. Nobody really knows except for the people that are already going to be playing anyway, right? Rather than sort of building up hype. Because again, just to tag down to the game perception, the perception of the game doing well, is when you are telling your buddies, oh my God, this game is so great, I'm really enjoying it, and there's a new expansion, and it's doing well, like, come play this. Like this, the sort of groundswell that comes from that is so important. And for those of us who were wondering if we were ever going to get any new content, to be told, like, I don't need it to be soon. It could be 2 years from now. But like the fact that, like, we just needed to hear the words, man. Like, the game is going to be going for the long run, the long haul, basically. That is just enormous for players like us.
Well, it made a huge difference to me too. For a long time, I've been kind of doing a lot of Final Fantasy stuff, and I was looking very much into Lost Ark, and I'm still interested in those games and I intend to play them, but I had almost, like, in the back of my head written Guild Wars 2 off just because I thought this was the end of the game. And when we finished EOD, it seemed like it might be almost. Like, I know a lot of other people weren't thinking that, but like the credits were so final. It was like we just had finished this RPG. The story was wrapped up as like a bow, and it was just that was going to be the end of it. So when I heard actually on Tuesday when they said that this was not going to be the end, like my entire thought of like playing Guild Wars 2, it just like changed. It did a whole 180. Like, I'm much more invested now, and I didn't even expect that to happen.
It was sad. It felt like a farewell, didn't it though? Like, when you guys look at the end of the story, it felt like they were like, the credits run, the sad song with lyrics is singing and playing in the background. We go and finally would like say hello to all of our friends in the tavern, and they all like share where their life is going from then on. It felt like the end of a classic single player RPG. We're getting married. This person's got this. They fixed their drama with this. Ritlock and Logan are BFFs now. Everything is like so wrapped up with a nice little bow. And then and I was just waiting for like the screen goes black, and then you see the big, evil, scary, hopefully not dragon, sort of rise up with the evil glowing eyes, and is like, now it's my time to crush Tyria, and then like cut to black, right? Hopefully not dragon, because Kurtik's dying.
No,
like, because we don't.
You see the end credits, it comes up and it says end of dragons, and right as he gets to the end of the credits, it switches to endless dragons.
No, we would have all rioted. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I fully expected there to be like, this isn't the end. And there wasn't that. It didn't happen. It just really wrapped it up in a nice little bow and said, okay, bye. And like, to me, there was something in the back of my head, especially because, again, like I was looking at my friends list. I was looking at Discord and seeing people not playing Guild Wars 2. Mm-hmm. Everyone's in Elden Ring. They're in Lost Ark. They're not playing Guild Wars 2. I'm going to the zones. The metas are failing. And the zones are empty. So by the time I finished the game, I was like, did they make this like, you know, like TV shows do that when they're not sure if they're going to get the next season renewed, right? They kind of give an ambiguous ending that's almost like a goodbye. And they like, just in case they get canceled. Like I had that vibe for this. I was like, is this just in case the game flops? And I was worried, man.
I'm so glad you guys also felt that way, because I felt that way. Even after the credits rolled, I felt that way. You know, we had that whole thing. I was like, I was telling Phoenix, I was like, I feel like we at the most are going to get Living World from this. That there is not going to be another expansion. That this is the end. They've wrapped up Guild Wars 2. This is the end of Guild Wars 2. She felt the exact opposite. She was like, no, we are getting more. We're obviously getting more. And I couldn't see the perspective.
Phoenix obviously correct.
Yeah, obviously.
I couldn't see the more either. I thought exactly what you thought, Cryptic.
Yeah,
and maybe we would get a couple of Living World stories, and that was about it.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm glad to be wrong, obviously. And that's what I think this is a huge commitment. This is a huge commitment to come out and say, we are going to do another expansion, because the way they set it up, they gave themselves an out to not be committed to that. And they are intentionally like, this is doubling down, right? Like you left yourself a way out, and they're slamming the door on the way out, and they're saying, no. I'm not locked in here with you. You are locked in here with me. We are doing this. This is going to be a thing. So.
No, it was just so important. And they waited the right amount of time, right? 3 weeks is about the amount of time that people took to, like, the whole community took to beat the game and do the little stuff in between that they wanted to do. This is right about the time that people could be questioning the longevity of the game and maybe meandering to the other 27 things that just came out in the last few months. You know what I mean? Like this is that moment to be like, hey, while you guys are still here, everything you've ever wanted here. Like that's basically what they did. Season 1, new strikes. Here's the new team. Everyone likes Grouch, right? Like everything seems to be going in such a good direction behind the scenes as well as in front of the scenes. And I'm telling you right now, dude, and we haven't talked about this, and I was going to bring this up during the Catalyst discussion with some of the changes that were just shown. But look at the way that they're writing. Not just the amount that they're communicating with the community now, but the way that they're writing. There's an awareness that I've never seen before. Read those Catalyst patch notes, man. These guys raid. Like the dudes who are playing this game or who are writing these things, like for the first time, maybe in the entire time that like sometimes I feel like ArenaNet makes these balance patches around the classes, and I don't know what kind of game mode that they're playing, because it feels like sometimes they just miss the mark completely, or like they cause dynamics that are accidental. That's what it feels like to me. Like they just accidentally landed in this certain setup of the meta, but now it feels like they actually have some sort of idea on what's actually happening in the raid scene and discussing it as if they were a raider. And it just felt so good to not only see that, but see it so darn quick. They came back 2 weeks later and were like, hey, we've seen this stuff. The other builds that are hybrid damage and quickness, they're being ousted by the overall damage of Catalyst and the ability to upkeep boons. We're aware that the ability to do that kind of damage requires a lot from the player because it's really hard to play, but we had to get things in line. Obviously, we overtuned. We're going to be rolling that back. Like that's real communication, man. That's the communication the Raiders dream of. Holy crap. That's how we talk to each other, Like, it's just so nice.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk more about that in the when we get to the balance section. But do you think, speaking about elite specializations, do you think we will get more in another expansion? Do you think we're going to get?
Yeah, I do. I think that they've dug themselves in that hole. I think they hate it. You want to know the truth? I think that they wish they could get away with not. If you want to know my opinion, I think for sure they despise it. I think they're like, crap, we've got to do another expansion. We have to do more of this. You can see why they wouldn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is a monster to create 9 new elite specs. That's got to be 10 times harder than every other bit of stuff that they do in a new expansion. Not to mention the forever challenge of balance. The forever challenge of balance that only gets harder the more things there are to balance. And it's exponential. It gets exponentially harder to balance, right? So like, I think that there would be riots in the streets if they came out with an expansion that didn't have elite specs, but I do think that they wish that they could get away with it.
I think they shouldn't do new elite specs. That's right now.
That's it. F's in the chat. Everyone throw things at Cryptic. Is there a throwing poop emoji? I need something like throwing rotten fruit or something.
I mean, I think we're going to get them anyway. I don't think I think they should use this opportunity to come up with a new way to customize to do more build craft with what we already have.
You mean expanding on the already completely horizontal progression in this game? Their mastery system was their best idea at that, and that is...
But that doesn't impact...
All right, at best, like it's not...
But what if they had a mastery-like system that actually affected combat? I don't mean stats, I mean change the way your character played.
So you mean expanding upon the elite specs that already exist then? Because that's the only way that makes sense to me. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
In essence?
In essence, yeah. I mean, so basically, like you got
I'm all for.
We talked about like revamping runes so that they changed your playstyle dramatically, right?
Yes,
like,
I did bring
like
that up.
That
was in the leadership discussion channel, but I did bring that up. Yes, I mean, that's actually an idea.
It's a whole other podcast that we'll do, but I'm just saying, like, I think that's the kind of direction that they should go is massive changes like that. And not introducing more elite specs.
No, that would 100% do it for me. If you allow me more choice, right? More self-expression in my build, more variety in the build that already exists, I would be 100% on board with that. To me, that would be every bit. Okay, so here's the thing. Like when an expansion drops for another game, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls Online, and they drop an expansion and there's no new class being added versus hey, we're adding a new class. The amount of excitement for the one that you're adding a new class is like twice as much. Like it literally is huge. It's so much bigger. I just want some of that. I want my ability because that's content for me. Content for me. So here's an example, right? I just said 3 weeks beating EOD, right? That's the average. People beat it. They did the little side stuff that they wanted to do. They're doing the metas, etc. Now we're on repeat. There's only so much you can drag from that. But for me, a new elite spec is like 9 new elite spec. This is going to carry me for like 2 more years. I'll have 2 years worth of playing around in raids and in content that already exists with these brand new elite specs. This is a ton of fun that is more replay value than anything else they could add. Doesn't matter how many maps they add. Doesn't matter how many, if they add raids or not. It's like the replay value that you get out of new elite specs or new classes cannot be beat. So for me, that's the content that I really look forward to. If that content comes in the way of expanding on what's already there, rather than adding new things, that's fine. That would still scratch the itch for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
What's
exactly
up,
the kind of stuff that they should be implementing. And I guess we can transition into what the future of End of Dragons, what they should be adding to not only what we currently have with End of Dragons, but also Living World Season 6, which we will be getting.
Yes, we will, and said to be still in Cantha.
Yes.
So the next Living World season will be in Cantha. We're gonna get 1 first, but then 6 will expand on the region that we're already in.
Where do you want to go in Cantha? I want to see how like drowned, ruined old Kaineng.
Well, can we finally get right with the underwater combat that we were promised?
Ha! The underwater combat that we all thought was going to be happening with this EOD expansion. Oh my God, Enko in the chat, you guys. Bro, I know we're sorry we're in the middle of the podcast, but Enko, are you back,
Enko.
dude? Everyone say hi to Enko. We miss you, man. Thank you for your service.
Enko. So glad you're back. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, shout out. Someone shout out Enko. There we go.
Right
Angie's got that. Where do I want them to go? I don't really know. And to be perfectly honest, I don't even care. I want them to go wherever the story would be best served, because I feel like this is the most exciting moment in the story of Guild Wars 2 since the gods were brought in at Living World season whatever that was, 4, whatever, and brought in temporarily and then removed again. That was the only moment in like a million years of Guild Wars 2 that I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. Okay, guys, next dragon. We're going to fight the next dragon. The next dragon's going to lose. Maybe this way or that way or the other way, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to be another dragon. And the events are exciting, and they're made well, and they're voice acted, and the metas make it feel very exciting. But as far as like story evolution, no surprises here, right? Like maybe this character dies or that character dies, but we're going to fight a giant dragon, and then that's going to be the end of it until the next dragon. This is the first time since since Balthazar randomly showed up, that I don't know what's going to happen. And that to me is like way more exciting than the setting. I hope that they're picking something really interesting and cool to go forward with in this next story chapter. Something that feels very different, and I hope that they bring us on that journey wherever that needs to go, if that makes sense. That's where I'm at.
No, I agree completely, and I hope that that's what they end up doing. There is hints into what the next story is going to be. There are collections at the... Did we lose Junie audio? She back to writing?
No, she just wanted to welcome Enko back while we were shouting, "Welcome back, Enko! I'm so glad you're back, dude."
Yeah, so there are collections after you complete EOD that give you their voice acted story bits if you complete these collections. One of them is a Marjorie collection. There's some other ones I forget that I need to do. I haven't done any of them.
And too busy doing the amulet.
Yeah, apparently there are hints in there for what the future story is going to be. Obviously, we won't talk about them here because of spoilers. I don't even know really what they are because I haven't done it. But I think they already have the groundwork planted, and I think that they are going to try to follow a narrative and not. I don't think we're going to get any more big bad, dragon world-ending scenarios for a long time. And that's
it's certainly not dragons. So much so that they were so aware, right? They had to have been by the end. I think they felt like they actually wrote themselves into a corner, because even they were like, you know what? Let's just knock out 2 dragons at the end and be done with it. Let's just speed this up and then literally name the expansion The End of Dragons. If they came back with another dragon right now, there would be riots in the streets of Lionsarge. People would be losing their shit, including myself. Azure said the gods were a big driving bit in Guild Wars 1. Merrick, that's how bad ANET is selling the story to new players. I know they were such a huge and tangible part of Guild Wars 1. I didn't even play Guild Wars 1 really, but I knew that was true. And when you walk into Guild Wars 2 at the very beginning, right, before you even have a hint of Zaitan, you are told as a human player that the gods were real. They were physical, tangible beings in the world interacting with humanity, that they were this big part of Guild Wars 1, and that they are not only just gone, but gone mysteriously. From the moment that you first step foot into Tyria in Guild Wars 2 and make your very first character, you're like, holy crap, there were gods, and you walk into the shrine and you see them all and you learn about all of them. They're so cool. You even pick a god when you're creating your character as part of your character's backstory or whatever, and then that mystery just hangs and then hangs and then hangs and then hangs and then comes back for like 5 seconds to blow your freaking socks off, which it does when that whole reveal happens with Balthazar. My God, that's the biggest reveal in the entire game. I was not ready. I was screaming. I was freaking out. It was so epic. And then they just let that like a balloon let go, just like, just like totally gone. I was so disappointed. Like, to me, there could be nothing better than bringing that back. That would be so freaking cool. And I know they like to bring stuff back from Guild Wars 1. Why not?
World ending though? Like,
I mean, it doesn't have to be like, it can be sort of mysterious at first or take a while, but to me, what if the gods aren't just some big bad world ending thing? Maybe there's, the gods have always been sort of ambiguous and, about their good and evil, their impact on the world. Maybe they were kept away for some reason and are finally, I don't know, like, I'm not the writers here, but I do believe that would not trigger me in the same way as coming out with another dragon. That would be following up on a story that I've wanted the answer to for literally a decade of my life. I mean, that's crazy.
See, I want the answers too, but I'm concerned that the answers are big because everything from what I've seen about the gods, everything is basically just. It just points to the gods just being like the dragons, right? Like they're flawed. They have motivations. A human can become a god. I actually had a discussion about this a couple of nights ago.
Cormyr, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Cormyr, yeah.
And so to me, I mean, these aren't really gods. They're just powerful beings that, from my perspective at least, they're just powerful beings that, don't happen to originally be from Tyria, except Cormyr. So. Yeah, well, actually, I think Grenth was also like Cormyr.
Grenth is a demigod. Grenth is half god, not
god. There you go.
Yeah, not a human.
But that's what I'm saying.
But supplanted.
Like,
what's his name?
But these are Doom.
Doom.
Yeah, Doom.
Yeah. What's his name? Doom. Voice in the void.
But these are these are to me. Like the story there to me would just go in the direction of the dragons.
Thank you,
I mean, there'd be more nuance to it, and not all of them would be bad, but I just don't. I don't know. The gods in this world to me, they're not gods that, like, I was asking, I was talking to Phoenix and I was like, I don't even understand why people would want to worship the gods in this world. They don't offer anything other than some of them offering power to bad people that want to do bad things, or tricking people because they find it funny, or, there's little side stories and stuff that are really interesting and great lore. But they just seem like powerful entities. They're not, like, I don't want to turn this into a religious discussion, but the concept of salvation has nothing to do with, that's probably the most powerful thing in religion, and it has nothing to do with the god. The gods aren't offering that. There's no, there's
no.
nothing.
It's much closer to like Greek gods, right? The
yes.
the sort of many pantheon of flawed human-like gods that we get the attributes from them, or obviously we've given those attributes to them because they're human traits. It's true. I believe that there's no real way of avoiding this. If you look at almost every other MMO, I want to say that Elder Scrolls might be the best version of what you want, Cryptic, or what we've talked about, sort of like avoiding the entire world is about to end. Oh my god, giant thing. Let's go from giant world-ending catastrophe to giant world-ending catastrophe. I think ESO is maybe the only one that has like these little stories instead that feel dramatic and important at the time, but they're really not quite as world-ending catastrophic. But like World of Warcraft is just one giant world-ending thing after another. Final Fantasy is the Warrior of Light. Everything is sort of like this big thing. You're this big champion. We are the commander, and we are going around stopping the end of the world. I believe that there's no avoiding it going back to that at some point.
Yeah.
What's important to me is that they take their time. So there shouldn't be another one right now. I want to go off on the adventures into the sunset in the Friends Detective Agency, okay? I just want to do that. I want to have some fun with the Friends Detective Agency for a while before the next thing comes. But when the next thing comes, I would rather it be gods than dragons. This is at least something that is like linked to an important question that I felt like the ball was dropped for a long time ago.
The reason that I think that it's going to end up being, if it goes back, if the gods end up being the thing they do, the reason that I feel like that's going to turn into dragons is because if they actually did a god story justice, the way that you want it done, Merrick, it would be a human-centric story, right? So instead, they would have to make the gods like nebula, like, because there are, like, if you look at like the eternal alchemy kind of seems like gods, and like, there are other, the Coden spirits seem, or not Coden, Norn spirits seem like gods, right? So like they would have to make it as like this kind of nebulous thing that all races can tap into, that, you know, like they're from another, you know, another plane.
Well,
blah, blah,
that
blah.
is an important bit here, right? Because in Guild Wars 1, where the gods were such a big part, there were only humans. You could only be humans. I mean, there were other races, but all stories were told from the human perspective because only humans were playable characters. So that is fascinating. You didn't really think about that. I mean, yeah, I guess, but it is. No,
I mean,
that is an interesting thing.
I just think that if they told, because I agree with you, I would like a nuanced, you know, God mystery. I think that would be very interesting to explore that, and not only to learn more about the gods and where they came from and all this stuff, but also to have, you know, those kind of dynamics back into Guild Wars 2, or maybe not back into it, but introduced for the first time for real, if you're not counting the 5 seconds in Path of Fire.
5 seconds, but those were the most awesome 5 seconds that I can remember for the entire expansion. Like I look back and I go, Joko was gross and weird, and I think Aurene ate him and threw up. And then somehow
we found out now in EOD that
was important, I guess.
That's important. Spoiler. So close your ears if you haven't done this part yet. But Aurene in EOD mentions that the reason she was able to come back to life was because she ate Joko. So
yeah. I'm just saying that, like, of all the story that happened in POF, like, I have it all blurred together as kind of this weird whatever, but then except for this beacon of like, I've never been more interested in anything in my entire life. This is so exciting. Oh, never mind. Let's go back to fighting Joko and being lame. Like, so it was such a drop off for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that going forward, they're trying to write new stories. A lot of Guild Wars 2 is wrapping up, you know, things that were left over from before. The dragons is really a leftover concept. Joko is, by the way, Joko, I haven't played Guild Wars 1, but Phoenix was telling me about it. Joko is a hilarious thing. He's a lich that got sealed away, and we as the heroes release him just to ask him, how do we cross the sulfur thing? And after we
cause
release
some problems.
Yeah, and then after we release this evil lich and he tells us, he's just like, so I'm free to go? Like, I told you what you wanted to know. And we're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And look what happens.
Yeah. It's like, so I really just feel like a lot of Guild Wars 2 is like wrapping up story beats that they just left in weird positions. And now
which I'm fine with to a point. I was just saying this yesterday. Like, somebody asked where I would like the next expansion to go. And that's a really good question. And if you want to know the answer to that, for me, the next expansion, somewhere totally different, right? Like, we basically rebuilt Guild Wars 1. We did Prophecy was sort of core Tyria, and then we did Nightfall, was going to POF, and we did HOT was a cool expression of it, but EOD was Cantha. Like, I would really like a totally wholly new, and Guild Wars 2 does this a lot, right? In a lot of things. And it to its credit, it builds for a very, a really solid continuous world. There does have a lot of like really cool richness that I think a regular MMO doesn't get to have, right? Like, this franchise has been going on since 2005, right? The game's almost 10 years old, but Guild Wars has been out since 2005. There's a richness to the story that I appreciate when you go back and do different things like that. But it would be nice to see some new things, build some new characters. And I mean, also, Flashy says, don't forget Cormier was in POF, and that's true. Also, Lissa had dropped her mirror in there. Like, there was a few elements of that. And in the Living World, I forgot what story. Remember when we helped Desmina go and like meet with Doom? Like, we went to Doom and we did that thing. There was that weird chapter having to do with that. So the gods have been sort of sprinkled around like a little tiny bit. I wish that it could be fleshed out a lot more. If we're going to go and keep revisiting old Guild Wars 1 thing, it's just that I've been wanting that for 10 years. So.
I mean, I think that's the crux of my issue, though, is that, like, if we do gods, it is closing off story beats from Guild Wars 1, which is what we've been doing
the whole time. Yeah, that's true.
I want to move away from that. I mean, I would love to know more about the gods. I would love to experience that story. I just think that I don't want ArenaNet to repeat the mistakes of the past, because they haven't been doing a great job up until EOD here.
Well,
yeah, they're doing great now.
Yeah, well, they are doing great now, but what if it actually went to that god's realm, though? I feel like that, like Inko said in chat, that would be an entirely new location, and who knows what kind of storylines you could get there. It doesn't necessarily have to be world-shattering, world-ending storylines. There could be a rich environment and
dude, that reminds me of
there.
like the planar realms in EverQuest. Every god had their own realm, and they were big raids, and they were so cool. I don't know, like for me, that would be really exciting.
There's
to
a
go
lot you
and
can
visit
do
them all.
there where it doesn't just turn into another dragon story.
Yeah.
Wait, SM Fox, you literally just read my mind, bro. We said that at the same time. Sorry, very excited. SM Fox, my new favorite human. Let's go. We're BFFs for F. Yes, Realms Like ties back to EverQuest 1. I have so many fond memories of that. And again, like I didn't play Guild Wars 1 very much, and Azure said like this whole gods thing would be really weird for someone who did not play Guild Wars 1, and maybe that's true. Maybe I've just built it up in my head for so long that I have such a burning curiosity about it. Maybe if I went back and played Guild Wars 1, which I'm planning to do, that would sort of erase some of that or diminish some of that, but I don't know.
I mean, it would be an interesting story. It's just a matter of how they would execute it. But anyway, speaking about other things in End of Dragons that in Living World Season 6 that we'll be getting is more legendary releases. I don't know if you guys...
Ish.
How do you guys feel about
Ish?
Yeah. How do you guys feel about the Aurene legendaries and the different ones coming out?
I'll let Junie respond first, and then I'll
Okay,
go on my tangents.
So if I'm understanding correctly, it is a legendary that is similarly skinned, but it's for all of the different weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can make a
Okay.
legendary of any kind, and they're horrendously
Right.
expensive. They're like 4,000 on the trading post right now. They are
Right.
sellable, but they all share a skin type like
Right.
would be a Black Lion skin set.
Exactly. I feel like that it just feels like they're just a little too expensive. And I'm assuming if you're making them yourselves, it's a lot of time. We know how grindy legendaries are because of just the enormous amount of resources that you need. I actually would have loved to see this because this is not a unique legendary, right? It's a not unique legendary. For them to have attempted to maybe make the legendary process a little bit more scavenger hunty and a little less throwing resources at something, and that would have been cool to see. So I'm a little, I don't know, it's not my favorite thing that they did.
Junie feels very strongly about this, and I do too. Another throwback. I'm sorry, dude, because I know probably no one but SM Fox and I have played EverQuest, but the idea of what we used to call epic weapon quests, right? So like every class had their own epic weapon, and it was a huge drawn out quest. And I mean real quest. You had to like puzzle things out. It took months to do, talking to NPCs, going in and camping things that were just like arduous and took time to do as a single player thing, and then things that took a group, and then things that took full-blown raids that your whole guild had to come together to help you get that one thing done. When you completed that, it was an epic, amazing thing that really changed the way that you played and the way that your character played. I feel like we lost a lot of that. I think that modern questing has changed so much, especially in Guild Wars 2, where most of it is resource-based monotony is how I would describe it. There's a reason why I've not done much legendary crafting, and it's not because, and it's a hard thing to solve, right? Because I know that in Guild Wars 2, it's built for the more casual player, and what they want is for someone to log in 1 hour a day, and then slowly do this little things every day and get the best stuff in the world, right? They can do it solo. So it's catering to them, and I understand that, but it felt like a bigger and more fun experience when you were questing for something. There's even like a glimpse of it, right? In the legendary weapons, the 1.5 weapons. Is it 1.5? The one with like hope and nevermore. There's like little bits that you can quest for, right? To get the precursor. Mm-hmm. Help me out here. But the precursors ended up being cheaper to buy than they were to quest for, so people just bought them instead. Like, it was just such a bummer. It could have been done better.
Specifically, and I know, and this I shot myself in the foot, but I did not want to buy them. I wanted to experience the precursor, so I just did the precursor quest and achievement, even though it would have been cheaper
Wasted
to
money.
buy it from the TP. But, like, I wanted to experience that, so, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, the Gen 2 legendaries, you still can't buy the precursors. You have to do those. So those are still quest gated. You're collection gated. You still have to go for them. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think they made an intentional design choice here because the original legendaries you could buy along with their precursors.
SM Fox.
Gen 2 you cannot.
EQ1
Although some of them are very throw money at still. So
yeah.
But
Most things are.
Obviously, with Gen 3 now, these are also buyable, and I don't think there's any precursor collection for these. This is entirely like throw resources.
And sellable
aren't
online
they
or on the trading post.
But they're so similar to Black Lion chest.
Well, so there is one you're correct. There is one difference. These are the only weapons in the game, as far as I'm aware, that have a kill animation. They have a unique kill animation that is tied to the dragon
associated with
or
it,
whatever you want to I mean, I haven't seen the weapon in action other than when they showed the previews for the the expansion. I haven't seen anyone with one yet. But I mean, I don't know. I think that they're interesting weapons. I think what's hinging for me on whether I'm going to invest in one or not is what the variants end up being. If the Zaitan one is really cool and like perfect for a Reaper, then I don't play Reaper, but then maybe Merrick will make one.
Yep, I will. All right, so I have to give my little thing. I had to complain about all those things. I don't think that they should be sellable on the trading post. I've always thought that was kind of bad. I wish that they were more quest oriented, a little bit more grand involved, some story to it, some sort of feeling that you're on a quest rather than a grind. So I didn't expect that, right? Didn't expect that fix. That's always been that way in Guild Wars 2. Like the way that achievements and legendaries are done is kind of grindy. And again, I think that's what they're trying to cater to. I don't think that's an intentional failure on that part. I think it's an intentional choice on their part. This just doesn't happen to gel with me. That said, I changed my perspective on these. Okay, so I got really bummed when first of all, I feel like it was partially their fault by saying, "Hey guys, 13 new legendaries coming out soon." You know what I mean? Like they did that first before they let us know exactly what was going to happen, because it was kind of false advertising the way that they did that. And then once we saw that they were basically like a really, really fancy Black Lion set, then there was a letdown. But once I got over that, what you realize is that it's basically one legendary. They came out with one legendary that can take the form of any weapon you want. And when you look at it that way, it's actually freaking cool because the skin is beautiful. It's gorgeous. The animation is awesome. The kill animation is badass. The actual individual weapons, except for maybe one or two, I was really disappointed in the axe. I didn't like the axe very much. But there's always one or two you don't like. But I think that if you look at it that way, it's okay. And then they're coming out with the augmentations for the various dragons. And my perspectives change. I will be getting several of these. I want a Mordremoth one, man. I want an Aurene one, and I want a Zaitan one. Like, I literally am going to be doing these, even though I was really let down at first. So my take on this is, in the end, positive. You're going to see them on my account.
I mean, yeah,
that's what I
was going to say. I do actually like them. I think they're really pretty, and I do intend to get one of them and to go through the process.
Which one?
See, that's what I'm not sure about. It would have to be, I have to go through my characters and see who I think it would be best on.
Dude, do you see the legendary amulet, right? The, I forgot what it's called, the something regalia. The like rainbow, whatever that you get looks so good with the legendary Aurene weapons. They're solid, man. Like that duo would be sick.
So I actually saw someone with the legendary amulet recently. And it was the first time I saw it. I've seen legendary? No. I've seen it plenty of times. I've seen the amulet plenty of times in the Mistlock, but I've never seen somebody with one in combat. And I actually thought they had a legendary weapon because it seems
it has
just
that vibe.
Like, it has the same thing. And then realized as we got closer, I was like, oh no, that's just the amulet. It's not the weapon. So I can imagine the two of them together would be amazing.
Yes.
But so the thing for me, obviously, if there's one that is, like I said, Zaitan or Mordremoth, or I'm not, the Aurene ones don't really do it for me. I specific Fashion Wars.
But you're getting the amulet right now. I know you are. You're working on it.
I know. Yeah, I know. But I mean, if the prices came down and I found some good Fashion Wars to work with it, yeah. But
what, 4,500 gold is too much for you, Cryptic? Is that what you're trying to say? They're so overpriced right now, guys. They're insane. Don't buy them.
But that being said, some of the variants I might be interested in. I'd love a Void one. That would be amazing. That being said, though, what would really, 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 really put it over the top for me is that if we'll have to see how difficult it's going to be to get the variants. Okay, so let's say I have the Orine Greatsword, and then I just let like the cores that you did for the back piece that we were talking about earlier. If it's something like that, right? Like the Orine Greatsword is the main thing, or the Orine weapon is the main one, and then you could just apply these cores to change it. If it's like something like that, and this is what would put over the top for me. And after you collected every single version, so like you change the weapon every single time, and now you've done it. There's a collection that opens up, and now you've changed the weapon for all the dragons.
Yeah.
If it then turned into eternity, basically, where you now have one that you can switch. You can't switch back. Well, you can with the.
So wouldn't that turn it into the void then? Kinda, when you're mashing them all together.
Sort of, but I wouldn't it be cool to be able to swap on demand to the one that you wanted, and then to be able to combine them if you wanted into the void, like you said, maybe, or some other crazy like rainbow mess or something. I don't know.
What do you mean crazy rainbow mess? That's my life all the time, bro. I'm used to this.
Oh, we really should have gotten one of those cookies.
No.
There's this place called Duchess Cookies. And we went,
dude, agreed.
And they were I put them on Twitter and Instagram. You can check them out. But
nice plug.
They were purple and pink, and they had sparkles on them. And I was like, "What is that?" Like, honestly, it almost looked like Play-Doh. But then I went over to it, and it said like unicorn, and it was called Unicorn. And Marek was actually in the store next to that.
There you go, Angie. Sorry, I forgot it linked to mine.
Oh well, that's I took a bunch of pictures of it and then ran like out of the store and over into the store next to it to tell Marek
and then
about
showed them to me, and then I tried to grab her phone and she ran again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of running. And then she posted it. It's just terrible. Anyway, I do want to move on because I wanted to discuss let's see, where do we leave off here? The balance, the quarterly balance updates.
Yeah, we can move on and talk about the balance in general.
Ooh, and then Steam. Yeah, we got a couple more things.
Yeah, we got a couple more things. So obviously we had there wasn't any balance updates other than the Catalyst nerfs, but we have obviously future ones that are coming in a couple of days, I think.
Catalyst buffs, or at least reworks, right? Let's call it reworks, because I love how they did that. They sort of
put it.
What? You don't call them reworks?
I don't know. I mean, I was holding my tongue when you were talking about the like way that they have nerfed Catalyst, but they're reworking it, so they're like, they are paying attention to the community. They are paying attention to the community.
More than ever before. We got to look at this in context, right?
But I've had this discussion before. I see what they were going for. Okay, they had an issue with Catalyst doing too much damage. Okay, and being able to give out perma quickness. Right.
Yeah.
It's debatable whether Catalyst could ever actually achieve that in raids consistently. And it is debatable.
They addressed some of that too, because it's not just about the damage being done. They also said that needing to upkeep something on a really large hitbox and having to be inside the hitbox the entire time, they don't like the way that it's playing, which is part of what I think is really good here, that they're addressing some of these things.
Yeah, and I agree with that. My thing, though, is, and I've kind of come over to this side. I think I was more on your side originally, but my thing is that what was the reason for... I would have liked them to come out and say the reason why they nerfed Catalyst and didn't just leave it the way it was until they implemented the reworks that they wanted to rework for it. Why basically remove a class from play? That's basically what they did. They said, we are disabling this class. And I mean, they've disabled Ellie in general. That's their favorite thing to do. But they're like, we've disabled Catalyst.
Well, Ellie is one of those builds that's always too powerful or too broken.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, but I disagree. Like you said emphatically, just there to emphasize 2 weeks, like it was a long time. 2 weeks is like a blip in the world of Guild Wars 2 balancing going wrong. They basically balanced it wrong, and they know that that's true. And then within 2 weeks, the very next time they address it, there's reworks for like rolling back some of what they did wrong and then attempting a different means in which to try to fix it and address a couple other problems. To me, yeah, like the 2 weeks is a bummer, but in the midst of what we're all dealing with, like this is the best case scenario for balancing out of arena.
I'm gonna push back on that. If what's your favorite thing to play right now? Vindicator, Condi Mechanist, whatever your favorite thing
those
to play
two
is.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say both of them. Let's say they nerf both of those into Oblivion, and then 2 weeks later they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna rework them because Vindicator, it doesn't feel good to play. You would be like, well, crap, I kind of, I'm probably going to like this rework, but I couldn't play my 2 classes for 2 weeks. Like, you would be
not at all. I would not be upset about that at all. No way, dude. We've seen this happen for like years at a time. Like something gets buffed or nerfed in a way that is unintentional or confused, and they don't give enough discussion for why it happened or what they were even going for, or that it didn't work out the way they wanted to. So they're going to try something different and then come and address it again 6 months later, a year later, 2 weeks. I like the fact that they tried to address something really quickly because they felt like it was a really bad problem, and then come back and like we saw it with Scourge like a bunch of times where it got broke in one direction dramatically or another direction dramatically, and then whole game modes had to sit there for 6 months broken while they took a while to fix that without any discussion about why they were doing what they were doing. To me, in context, this is good.
You're band-aiding the original problem with time. You're saying that because it was only 2 weeks, because they're literally doing all the things you just said that they've done, that they've done in the past, is literally what they're doing.
Time is the factor. Time is the factor.
No, to me, the factor is the approach that they're taking. It wouldn't matter. I mean, obviously, the shorter the time frame is, the better for balancing. It should be as short as possible. But if their approach had been different to begin with, it wouldn't have been. Nobody would be complaining that 2 weeks from now they're reworking Catalyst if they had access to the Catalyst that they were playing.
But what you're saying, like, because the only way to really do this is if they had a PTR. Like a real PTR where they do all this stuff, and they don't do that this way. So like but they have to balance it and put it out there, have it be exposed to the community. And I'm not afraid of them putting things out with an attempt to fix it and having it go wrong. So that's fine that they did that. What my only qualm is when it goes wrong and there isn't enough discussion or a quick enough turnaround. So this was a lot of discussion, a quick turnaround, and potential fix without, we are the PTR. So that's really what it comes down to.
It's interesting to me that your perspective is that they made changes here and it went wrong, and then they're going in a new direction. My perspective here is that they wanted to remove Catalyst from, and I don't mean it in a mean way, like, oh, Catalyst is done, like, they removed it. I mean it like, the changes that they put in here are basically what it was in the beta. They basically reverted it back to the pre-buff that it got in beta. And I think that was very intentional. I think they actually they didn't want people to play it. They didn't want it to.
You think they nerfed it to Oblivion on purpose to give them time to work on it?
Yes, exactly. And I feel like that approach,
I think that's the meme. I don't think that's true. Forward. No, but you are inferring that. That's not actually true. And it wasn't even it was a 10K nerf from a 45K benchmark. That puts it in the realm of other benchmarks. Cryptic, you are way making that dramatic. It is still in 35K range, and that's even with quickness, isn't it? So it's like,
wasn't the bench? I think the bench was like 43K, and it got nerfed down to 34 or something.
Again, that's not unplayable. We're making that way more dramatic. We're talking about something that got put into a realm that was maybe too low.
Suffered the same amount, so
but then only 2 weeks
became unplayable.
The what did?
The DPS version. So you're talking about the quickness variant of it, which is obviously fine. But the DPS one went to like 35K, that's unplayable.
That's unplayable? See what I mean? You're being crazy right now. That's not true. The frame of this whole debate is wrong. 35, like that made it in a place where the only reason where that build was considered, where that nerf was considered to be completely unfair, was because of the difficulty of the rotation. That's literally the only reason. If it had some other strengths and was easy, if it was survivable and was easy, it would be Scrapper, or it would be Untamed or anything else like that.
Sure, but you accept the loss of damage on Reaper and Scrapper because you have the survivability, because you have the utility, because you have the ease of rotation and quality of life. Not having any of that, Ellie is the exact opposite of all those things, and then they have the same bench as those classes is not acceptable.
Which is why it's being reworked. I'm not. This argument can't be based on where it is now, because they've already said they're going to be fixing it. So not only are they talking about fixing the numbers, which they're going to be doing, but also probably some of the problems that make that lack of utility or special requirements on the class that make it extra toxic, which should be rewarded with higher damage, right? We all agree about these things, but those things are being fixed, and they're being fixed within not just within quarterly updates, not just within 3-month sections, but within 2 weeks. To me, like, I can't imagine a better case scenario if a mistake was made. I guess the best case scenario would be they never make any mistake and they balance it perfectly. But if they're gonna if a mistake was made or that something landed in a place where it shouldn't be, 2 weeks is.
No, 2 weeks. I'm totally on board with the time frame. I just think the time frame is a band-aid for the actual issue, which is, Anko just said it in there, like the catalyst bench is entirely based off of a bunch of little small conditions that don't actually add up to anything in an actual raid. Like you can't actually pull that off in an actual raid.
Well, and again, those are being addressed. Those were all specifically mentioned.
I know. And that's great. All of that is great. Why did you need to nerf catalyst until you did that rework? That's my problem here, is that they shouldn't have touched it. They should have left it alone.
We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. What if they reworked it, ended up bad, and they're like, okay, we'll just bump the numbers back up, and they're like, well, but it's still 45k on Snow Crows is 35k in this build for the average person on the average fight. It's still not going to be where they want it to be, and then they rework it and make bigger and different decisions. This is... I feel like we're inferring so many things in this discussion that we can't know, but the best thing that we could possibly know, the only things that we can quantify are communication and time. Those are literally the only things that we can quantify and know absolutely, and those are the two things that they're hitting perfectly, right? That's exactly what we're getting out of this. I've just seen it so many times where a build is done, like this has happened exactly in this way to a different build, and then the entire meta or the entire game mode in terms of like PvP and World v World have to sit with it for an entire quarter or longer until something like that is fixed. So and in those instances, you can complain about all the things you're complaining about and the things that we can absolutely quantifiably know, which is that they weren't communicating at all, and that the timing was so long that everyone had to basically don't you guys remember the times where people just walked away from SPVP or World v World entirely because Scourge just like crapped on it for like several months or like a whole half a year or something because it just dominated and defined the game mode? These are things that like you wanted to grab somebody from Arena and go, hey, say something. Are you aware of it? Do you know that this is happening? Is this how you want it to be? Are you planning changes? Like there was so much that we could not get from them. And now like to expect that they wouldn't make mistakes is one thing, but to see that the things that I've always been most frustrated about are being addressed. I'm just being glass half full.
No, I mean, I see your perspective. To me, it just seems like in this one scenario, they decided to act quickly. I don't care about the time frame. I think time frame's good. But in this one scenario, they decided to nerf something that was... to me, it didn't seem like it was negatively impacting the game. And they took something that wasn't negatively impacting the game and turned it into a negative for the people that enjoyed that aspect of the game. And like,
all 5 Catalyst players. Just kidding.
Also, Merrick.
No way! Yo, guys, I see it. Perfect Z TV. That's my barber. No joke, dude. I was at my barber today and I got a haircut. You guys see the fade? And then I was sitting there waiting. Junie had to go to the ATM and I looked up and I saw this like ring light. I was like, dude, this reminds me of streaming. And he goes, you stream? I was like, yeah, I stream. He goes, I stream too. And I was like, oh shit, my barber streams. So he streams like PUBG and stuff, guys. If you are into shooters, go check out Perfect ZTV. And if you live on Long Island and want a sweet haircut, hit him up for that too.
There you
go. Yo, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't know.
Are you streaming, bro? I will raid you after this. Yeah, he is. I'm gonna raid my barber. Words I never thought I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like why didn't they apply the same philosophy to Mechanist, which is overpowered right now and negatively, in my opinion, that's negatively affecting the game. Or
that's a good discussion too. The state of Mechanist is tough.
Untamed is broken. It's actually just broken. It is everyone playing the class the way it was originally designed to be played. It feels bad, does not like it. It's not enjoyable. It doesn't do damage. The only place that it's fun is an open world where you don't care about your damage in 90% of the cases. But then
Untamed is getting buffed too, though, isn't it? Didn't they address that also?
Well, I don't know. I didn't see that in this blog post. I know it got a small buff, but the small buff is negligible. But then the other thing about Untamed that's actually broken is that there are things you can do in Untamed that you shouldn't be allowed to do, using macros and stuff to get crazy damage that is actually breaking. I can send you some benchmarks that Phoenix sent me that is just really not.
Yeah, that's disgusting, and obviously is like a bannable thing, right? Like you're not supposed to be playing with macros and things like that. That is obviously unintended. Where Untamed has landed,
same approach though.
Well, Untamed is a hard one to talk about. Mechanist, I would agree. That's an easy one to talk about. Untamed is tough because Untamed really fits itself in so much. It's so familiar, right? It's so much of a brawler build, exactly like Scrapper. And it took them so long to balance Scrapper. It took so many years to balance Scrapper. They weren't sure how they wanted to do that. And I knew as soon as I saw the earliest stuff about Untamed, it was the next Scrapper. I said that a million times to a million people. And so like so many of us wanted it to be something that it wasn't. I think Phoenix actually was the one who said the most poignant thing that I can think about it, which is that all Ranger players wanted a Ranger build that used their pets and did damage. And instead, like, because Soul Beast was the only way to really do damage as a Ranger and you lost your pet, they wanted to do damage with their pet. And they made it a almost 0 damage build and then pooped green crap all over their nice, pretty pets. I was shocked when Cryptic showed me this, guys. Have you seen this? They came out in this expansion alone. They came out with a Phoenix, which is like a macaw parrot, right? It's like beautiful blue, green, red. It's gorgeous colors. And then what is it? It's crapped all over green Swamp Thing. It's basically Swamp Thing Phoenix. Looks just like Swamp Thing. And then they got like a cool... What is it, like the white tiger, right? The white tiger, dude, it looks so cool. And then what is it? It's the white tiger became Swamp Thing. Yeah. So obviously, I think they definitely missed the mark when it came to Untamed for a lot of reasons. Mechanist, I think, is really... let's see. My good friend Angie says, and I quote, Mechanist is going to get clapped hard. And I think that is probably a very astute observation. I think that Mechanist is probably outperforming in every version of Mechanist, of which there are many, and they're all very strong. I'm afraid to see how that balancing is going to go, and I think that little number tweaks are one thing, but I think some of the problem with Mechanist is intrinsic in its sort of like build mechanic. I don't think that losing your tool belt skills, which is a huge amount of customization and variety. Yeah, for the mech skills, which in essence, no matter what version of the build you're in, you're using them off cooldown. Yeah. They're basically just whack-a-mole, right? As soon as they're up, you just whack them back down. And you're losing a huge amount of customization and utility that you get from tool belt skills. And so what we're seeing, and also the mech itself incentivizes less customization and less button pressing because it requires the use of, especially in DPS builds, it requires the elite signet, because that's bigger damage than anything else you're going to get from your elite, and it takes shift signet. So you're dropping things already that would have been kits and other things that were way more variety passive things.
If you want to get full advantage of the mech, yes, but there is a Condi mech build that does good damage, like 41k is higher than the normal one.
Yeah.
That takes mortar kit.
It takes mortar kit and bomb kit.
Yeah, and bomb kit. I mean, but basically what that is regular Condi NG with a little bit of mech. So you're not really playing the
which is style, just as hard, right? Yeah. As like a regular Condi NG. Yeah. And you're going from maybe one of the easiest DPS builds I've ever played in my entire life to one of the hardest DPS builds I've ever played in my entire life. And you're gaining 1500 DPS from, and not just 1500 from like 31 to 33 where it matters. We're talking 49.5 to 41. Like, this is where we're sitting in that number crunch. So it isn't worth it not to take J Drive, in my opinion.
I mean, I'm learning it right now. So
J Drive or the other one?
The other one.
The other one? Oh man! All right, you're a better man than I am, Gunga Din. We'll see how that goes.
But I mean, you just to quickly touch on what we had just discussed, because we normally agree on things, so this is rare. Do you not see my perspective here that, basically they're saying Catalyst doing this much damage is a problem, not only because of the bad design, which they have openly admitted, but also because it's providing perma quickness, which is not what we don't want classes doing this much damage with perma quickness. And they're saying we have to fix this right now. We're nerfing it. We'll rework it at a later date, which thankfully 2 weeks. That's a great timeline. Love that. But then they didn't treat Condi Mechanist and Untamed the same, which are both bad design and are both doing things that break what they want in the game. Condi Mech, or not Condi Mech, Heal Mech and Lack Mech are breaking their design for 5-man boons and their diversity perspective. And obviously it's a bad design as well in some respects. And then Untamed is bad design and is breaking their terms of service because people are taking advantage of things. I just feel like, I just want consistency. Treat the other ones the same and it just feels bad if you're I'm not a Catalyst player. I am not biased here, guys. I don't play Ellie at all. And to me, it just feels bad that they sniped Ellie and are like, yep. And by the way, Ellie mains, all of your things are always sniped. It's just like, I don't know.
Come on.
So personal.
No
Ellie.
way. There was a 3-year stint of time where if you didn't play an Ellie, you were kicked from raids. I mean, no way. And it's always been that they've always had one of the highest benchmarks. It's just that most people don't do it. We don't see it is the problem. And I disagree when you're comparing it to things like the DPS Mechanist, because I believe that it is actually more game breaking to try to fix a build that is in a position like that than a pure DPS. If a build is doing too much DPS, then they're just filling a DPS spot and doing too much damage. What their argument was is that in a position of a hybrid DPS quickness spot, which is a mandatory spot now, especially when it comes to like quickness and alacrity, you need all of them now because everything's 5-man. So this is a spot that is absolutely needed in every group. 2 of them, really, most of the time, especially since heal alac tends to be the heal version that we're seeing rather than heal quickness, especially since the nerf to heal brand. So what we're seeing there is that they're ousting another role. Any other role that can do hybrid quickness at that point is not going to be brought, period. It doesn't have that same effect on DPS. Now that's the first point. The second point is consistency. Yes, I agree with consistency going forward. To me, I see this as a total different thing. It feels like a departure from the really overall negative things that they've always done. I don't think that they're doing anything else different that's worse right now. I think that I'm just seeing things that are better. And if they're trying something new, if this is just like a new thing that they're trying, they're attacking something really quickly. They're attempting changes rather than being too afraid to mess with something or too afraid until it's all set in stone, and then they're not going to, and they come out with it all in a giant leap, and then they're not going to change it again until another giant leap 6 months later. If they're trying to do a couple of like yo-yo swings back and forth, or pendulum swings, I don't know why I said yo-yo, pendulum swings back and forth a couple of times before the big quarterly so that they know where they're going to land for the quarterly and then try to leave it sitting there, I guess I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt. I agree with you that in the long run, what we would hope for is that consistency. But I think that the highlight thing for me now are the good things and not the bad. I do feel bad for Catalyst players. There are enthusiasts out there for sure. But if I was a Catalyst player, because I was already scared away from Catalyst, not because of its nerf, but because of the other reasons that they're addressing. The sort of implayable sort of things, like the inside hitbox, mandatory large hitbox, movement sucking being like the end of the world, which already is a like a huge knock point, right, for any Ellie. These, to me, I don't think that I would be pissed that I got 2 weeks where I couldn't play my build. I think I'd be very excited that my build was getting so much attention in the first 3 weeks of the game and potentially being reworked. I wouldn't be mad for the Catalyst players. I do understand your perspective as the Untamed player. Let's put it that way. I don't think that the Catalyst players should be rising up. I think that more than that, the Untamed players should be jealous. That's how I would feel. And I don't even know how to fix Untamed. I don't, dude. I feel like they would have to rework the whole thing. Again, it feels to me like a brawler build.
Batteries in my headset.
Cryptic sucks. He's wrong and I'm right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Is it fixed yet?
I think we're on the same page. I mean, I heard everything you said.
Damn.
I think we're on the same page. I think we're on the same page. To me, I mean, I just wanted to make one correction. I said earlier, I said Condi Mech. I didn't mean Condi Mech for the perspective. I meant like heal mechanist, right? Like you said, like Catalyst is filling.
So sad. It needs to be nerfed though.
Yeah, I mean, you said Catalyst is basically was potentially presented a situation where people would only want to bring Catalyst, which is, and they said that in the interview, right? That was their reason.
Which we are exactly seeing with the lag mech. Yeah,
exactly.
You're absolutely right. Exactly. You're absolutely right.
So.
And that needs to be nerfed too. I don't think that there's anyone who's holding out any hope that Mechanist is not going to be nerfed as soon as a patch lands. It is scary for me because I like Mechanist thematically. Again, I think mechanically it leaves a little bit like if you look at playing heal mech, it feels like a dumbed down version of Heal Scrapper. Which to me, I feel like people already complain is kind of dumbed down. So like you can try to like do all these boons and it would require, it requires a little bit to upkeep might. Because you're doing it based on HGH. You're getting a ton from a F2, I think, and then HGH from your various elixirs. And if you want to keep up things like Fury and you take like, what is that? Fire turret or whatever. There are flame turret. There are ways that you can advance it. I feel like it's a total brain dead build that brings a lot, or it is a decently like a build that requires a decent amount for you that brings way too much. Yeah. So it always depends on the hands in which it is in, and that makes balancing so interesting, doesn't it? It's also so difficult. Mm-hmm. So I think that a lack mech needs to be nerfed somewhere in the effect of boons. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to pace that out, but I do anticipate it. And sadly, the Condi DPS build is going to be nerfed. I think it's just too easy to get good DPS on that build right now. Which is sad because I've been saying this on stream. It's the very first build to ever unlock the door to Condi Engineer for the masses because it's always been there. Condi Engie, base Engie, Condi Scrapper, Condi Hollow have always been solid benchmarks. How many people do you know play them?
Nobody.
Can you think of a single name? No. They're always good benchmarks. No one plays them. This is the first time that I've been able to dual wield pistols on my freaking NG since I made Hope in the dawn of time. And it's exciting.
Right now, actually.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am for my Condi NG.
Wait, no, it might be wrong timing, Cryptic. What did they nerf it so bad?
My version of the build won't get nerfed.
Oh, that's fair.
Probably not.
That's fair. But you're right.
I'm concerned, or not concerned, but like, I don't know. I don't want
Angie, do you?
To be nerfed too much. I understand it's easy and it's doing high damage, but this is the first time.
It's also 100% ranged.
It's also 100% range, which is about what I'm gonna get into. This is the first time in like forever since like when they nerfed Condi Chrono, that we've had a relatively, I mean, Condi Chrono wasn't super easy, but a relatively easy to understand.
I loved Condi Chrono. I loved that build so much. Remember,
I was actually decent at Largos.
When Condi Chrono was a thing, dude. Yeah. I know. God, I missed that build.
Yeah, I missed it too. But
Scepter and frickin' Mesmer is so great.
It is. This is the first time in a long time that we've had a easier to get into Condi build that also works. The Condi mech works in more places than Condi Chrono did. It works everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It is so consistent.
There's not a single confusion component, guys. And that's also the other thing about, in case you guys don't know this is a PSA. You're all so used to Condi Mesmer being gated at only certain bosses that react well with confusion. Condi Virtuoso, in case you guys didn't know, almost 100% bleed. You can bring that to any build or any boss in the entire game. It is not confusion. I just want people to know this. I feel like every time I say it, someone goes, "What?" like they didn't know. But it's very exciting.
But it's interesting that you're right with Virtuoso. But I mean, it's interesting that Condi Mech seems to have brought like the holy trinity of things to make a build that works everywhere that anyone can play. Obviously it doesn't work on power fights, but on any Condi fight, and because it's completely ranged, it's an easy rotation, and the Condis are not based off of movement or skill use or anything like that.
And yet it's still strong on those fights. Did you see the numbers on Solus Horror? Holy crap, dude!
Which has always been the problem with SB3, for example. That was always the problem with that, was that it wasn't strong on the fights that things like Revenant or Chrono or whatever would dominate. Mirage would dominate on. Mm-hmm. But then it also couldn't do Largos, right? Like it just couldn't, even though it was ranged, it couldn't handle that kind of fight at all. And now we have a build that can do that, and I don't want to lose too much of that, right? Like it should be nerfed, but I don't want to lose too much of that. I feel like if I'm playing my Renegade really well,
Triangle, I agree.
Beat Condi Mech, which is tough right now.
Yeah, it is tough.
It's so consistent. But I also don't want them to be like, 33K or 35.
Well,
it should be more than that.
I think that like, and this has always been such a debate when it comes to balancing DPS, right? Like, and the debate that I used to get into with people all the time was about Reaper, because Reaper was always like a low benchmark, right? It was somewhere like 31, 32, 33, 34, and 34 is kind of where it's sitting at now. And everyone used to tell me, because I was always trying to popularize DPS Reaper. I'm like, look, guys, it's okay, because raids are really not always about sustain. They're kind of about burst a lot of the time. So a lot of fights, burst really works. But everyone would say, no, like if it only got like a 2 to 3K boost in DPS, it would be great. It would be such a great build. And my argument for that was always against it. Even though I was a Reaper player, I argued against it. And for the same reason the Flying Triangle is talking about right now, everything cannot be that linear. It can't be that directly comparable. It shouldn't just be this build versus this build versus this build based on DPS, because that's not the only thing that we bring into the equation. A Reaper, in order to be like 39, 40K, it would have to lose a lot of the other things that it brings, right? It has great survivability, amazing survivability. It has the highest HP pool in the game, and then it has an armor of life force on top of it. Things that made it quintessentially Reaper would have to be nerfed in order to put it on the same playing field as, say, an Elementalist, which is really, high damage rotation, right? Or high APM rotation to get that kind of damage, and very squishy. So the Reaper's rotation was easy compared to an Ellie, and they were very not squishy. So you can't make them directly comparable. Also, it is nice to have intro builds into raids. There should be a build that's super duper hard that maybe is gated behind an APM and a difficulty of complexity and rotation that it makes it so only 10% or 5% of raiders can actually do it. That's great. Those should exist. But there should also be builds that are easily accessible, right? And rewarded with less effort, even though they're not rewarded as much as that Elementalist. So I don't think that everything should be equal. I think that, like Triangle said, I actually like that Mechanist is easier. I think there should be a place for easy classes, because that's something that makes the game more accessible. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's absolutely true.
Which, by the way, assuming the easier version of Conde Mechanist
Game curve
too hard, I really think Engineer is the best learning raid class, because it has a easy, maybe not the best learning raid, but the best for anyone to kind of just get into and have a ramp up, because it has an easy version of everything, right? An easy version of a support, and it ramps up to a more complex version.
Yes.
Of power, which is no kid hollow.
Yep.
And then it ramps up to as complex as you want it to be, and has an easy version of Conde Mech now, or Conde build, and it can ramp up to the most piano.
Yes,
oh god. Core NG piano, Conde Core NG, and break your hands.
Carpal tunnel. You guys have heard my story. I got literal carpal tunnel that I still struggle with this day. 4 years ago, trying to learn Conde NG. So that's how bad that is. But I often I'm always trying to extol the virtues of Engineer, because in the current meta, it is the best all-around class there is.
Yes.
You could play Power, Conde, in 8 different ways each. And based on choice, they're all viable. And you can also, on that same character, you can play a hybrid support or a full-fledged healer support that provides quickness, or one that provides alacrity. And so you've basically got everything wrapped up in a single class. Now, again, we're talking about this meta. We're talking about the current stance of this class because we're expecting it to change soon. But at least where it sits right now, it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, it is. It is. Empress in chat said Guild Wars 2 needs more PvP content.
Yeah, it does.
I agree. You're going to get
Clone
more
Lord Merrick agrees.
content. I don't think you're going to get any more structured PvP content for a while.
No,
I don't think that's
say it ain't so.
I don't think they care about your structured woes. I'm sorry.
Guys, please shout out Empress XV. If you want to learn anything about SPVP, this is the person. She's so sweet and so good at PvP. And just so you guys know,
Empress.
The MTV Guild in Guild Wars 2 is recruiting, and we're working on the Guild Hall. We're doing the Isle of Reflection Guild Hall right now. We're working on upgrades, and we need potions of PvP rewards. So we're going to be hosting PvP events. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm going to be doing and streaming and building events for SPVP very soon. So Empress, be nice. Please take it easy. Take it easy on me if you see me in there. I'm scared.
We'll have to recreate our PvP fight where we first met.
Oh God! Oh my God! We have to wrap up, but I want to tell that story soon because that's a really good story. I wish I had recorded that, dude. It was so good.
Yeah.
Do we have
Steam
Yeah, we got to
events,
wrap
if you
up
want-
quick. So
yeah,
do
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Touch the last one. And we'll
Okay.
just touch it.
All right. So obviously, Guild Wars 2 has been talking about Arena has been talking about moving Guild Wars 2 to Steam for a long time. It's been in the works.
Woo!
Yes.
Any woos in the chat?
People are very hyped about it. I, for one, would love to play Guild Wars 2 on Steam Deck, which you can already do apparently. But
Dude, link the video.
I've seen
Link the
videos
video.
of this.
I will.
So, question: if we move all of that to Steam, are Steam achievements going to be a thing, and will they be given retroactively?
Oh, snap. That's a really good question I hadn't even thought about.
That's a really good question.
Dang, Junie coming out with some great. I don't know. Also, I want to welcome Friendship Beard to the stream. First time chatter. Thank you for hanging out. Do you guys see player housing being added ever? This is a big thing
that would
for.
be my dream. Oh my god.
We talk about this every podcast.
They so need to fix the home instance. If they could fix player housing, they could stick a door in your home instance, and when you go through the door, you go to the to the player housing instance. That would be fantastic.
I say this all the time, you guys. There are different communities of MMO gamers out there. There's different ones for different reasons. WoW players could care less about player housing. Okay, they're just not that kind of player. They experimented with it with garrisons or whatever. Like, nobody really cares. It's not that kind of game. Guild Wars 2 is absolutely that kind of game. It's the best game in the world for player housing. The exact player base that plays this game would be freaking out about decorating their own stuff, crafting legendaries, and then hanging them on the wall, killing Zaitan and mounting his head above the dinner table that they crafted with their freaking house crafting thing. They would be amazing. So yes, please, ArenaNet, someday give us this. We need it.
The next expansion has to have it. I was just watching Guild Wars 1, people playing Guild Wars 1, and Phoenix was taking me through this whole area where you store your pets. There's farming, and like you can see all of your pets in their natural habitat, and it's I don't know, I don't know why we don't have that yet, but that's for another podcast. We'll do a whole one just on.
Can we? We need to.
Oh my gosh, Empress, that's me in Elder Scrolls. I have so many books I want to put on the shelves.
Yes.
And balancing
Oh
them
my
so
gosh.
hard. Oh my god.
That was so. It was really hard to put them in the bookshelves because they didn't really want to be in the bookshelves. We had to sort of manually place them in the bookshelf.
Not, especially in things like Morrowind. Remember trying to put a book on a bookshelf in Morrowind?
Buddy.
Oh my gosh.
I hated the uneven books. So you got normal size binder books, and then you would get the small little notebooks. Somebody scribbled down a note, and putting that in there, and it just falls over, and it doesn't line up with the other books. Anyway,
so Steam. Just to touch on that, they were going to release it last November. I want to say was when they were first talking about this.
Yeah,
they put it on an indefinite hold with no end date in sight. It sort of surprised everyone. The entire community had sort of a backlash of disappointment. And then we all sort of collectively recognized, without them really saying it, that EOD was coming out. And it made a lot more sense to release this expansion and Steam at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody complained about the Steam release because all of a sudden that made perfect sense. Why not have the biggest moment in the last 4.5 years of Guild Wars 2 coincide with the release of exposure to a whole new player base, right? That was our idea.
Absolutely.
But then it ended up not being that.
Nope. No, I mean, first off, the 2 years ago, November 2020 was when they were going to originally release it for Steam. So obviously, we wanted it to come out for End of Dragons. It ended up not being that. I think that's actually fine. I mean, they talked about how, you only get to release on Steam once. I don't know. I'm a skeptic in this. I don't know how much of an impact Steam is going to actually have on the player base. That being said, I do really think that
it's not even a thing.
This is something they need to
that.
do correctly. They shouldn't rush this. They should take their time. And the better that they lay this out, the more beneficial it's going to be for Guild Wars 2 going forward. And a whole new player base they may have access to that they don't currently have access to. So we'll see what Steam release. My big concern is not only with things like WP did a whole video on this, not only things with the settings and onboarding people, and obviously they're working on that with DirectX 11 and with Living World Season 1.
Also huge DX11, dude. We didn't even talk about that. That's so big.
No. Yeah, it's big. It's big.
Out of beta.
Yes, out of beta. I will probably switch to it. I'm currently using DX9 to 12 mod. So
I'm just using real DX11. I'm actually doing it. I don't have the workaround anymore. I'm just full on DX11. It's solved all of the issues I had, Cryptic. Remember when I was talking about how Guild Wars 2 was taking like 70% of like my CPU for no reason? Everything stopped when I started using DX11. And then there were some texture issues. I wasn't getting any crashes. So I've not had any crashes related to DX11, but I had texture issues that got fixed when EOD launched and they did the tiny patch to DX11. Remember, they threw a little patch in for that. Solved it.
Okay. That's good. I may actually switch to it as well because I'm using the mod right now, and I had to use the mod because I was having all kinds of issues with DX9, and the mod only problem I have is texture issues. I have texture issues right now, so maybe I'll switch to actually using and see if it solves the problem. But yeah, there's a lot of great things coming with the Steam release. And people there, we're going to have, achievements and stuff like that associated with all that. I think the big opening question for me is what is going to happen with the Gemgate stuff. I don't think it doesn't seem right, especially for a season. Season 1 is not going to be Gemgated. I've already said that, but it doesn't seem right for season 2. Yeah. It doesn't seem right for season 2 or even any of the seasons to have them gem gated. Obviously, they would have to do it in a way that didn't upset people that have paid for those.
Yeah.
But we're having people buy bundles on Steam, and we're having people buy the expansions and stuff like that. It doesn't seem right to get an expansion story and not get the content that led you up to that, right? So if you bought just HOT, shouldn't you get season 1 and 2?
I mean, at this point, yes, I agree. Yeah. 100%, especially since they just did that run through and gave them away for free, and now there's a brand new expansion they're releasing for EOD. I feel like it's time to finally let go of that for the seasons, right? Maybe keep it going for the future ones. Maybe when they do Steam release, they stop charging for all the previous ones, and then they go back to their old model where if you're there, it's free. If you're not, you have to pay for it. But like at least backlog from the moment that Steam releases. Don't make people pay for that, because how often have you gotten people to buy a Guild Wars 1, like a buddy of yours? You're like, hey, come play this game with me. And they buy the expansions and then they get through with the personal story. And they're like, wait, I have to buy hell of shit. Like there are like a ton of stuff. Like all the Living World season stories up to that point is a decent amount to buy. I think that's a gate now that they should kind of maybe let go of.
Yeah, I think so too. I also think they need to work with rework. And I didn't think about this. I saw it with WP's video, but it's totally true. The leveling process is not good anymore. Remember when you used to level, you'd see the little story marker and you would go from place to place and do some events along the way and then
is that different?
Story. No. Remember, they changed this years ago. It was a small little change in a Living World update where now you are level gated before you can do the story. So you do the story for a bit, and then you're locked out, and you literally have to grind basically in order to get to a level to do the story. That feels terrible, and I didn't really think about it because obviously we just skip levels now. We don't do any of that. We just power level.
Well, because we have thousands of tomes of knowledge.
But
thousands of them.
Royal was going through that. He was leveling, and then all of a sudden he couldn't do any more story, and he literally said the words. I didn't even think about it until I was watching the WP video. He literally said the words, "Oh, so I guess I have to go grind somewhere now." And I was like, "Grind?
No. And it's interesting that you're saying this, because there was a line of text in the update from ArenaNet when they were talking about polishing the new player experience that they brought up. They did it vaguely. They didn't say what changes, but they said a while ago we tried to make some changes that would help the new player experience. And they said something to the effect of like, and whether or not those changes were even helpful is arguable. Like they were aware that even some of the changes that they did may not have hit the mark that they were looking for. And I couldn't remember what those were. So that's interesting to think that might be it.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that gets changed, because I mean, you shouldn't be, if somebody is doing story that's above their level, then that's fine, right? Like if they fail at it, then they know they have to go somewhere else and do something else.
That was me. I did that.
Exactly. But to gate it and to basically, I never in my entire time playing Guild Wars 2, never grinded for anything level wise. Like when I got to a part of the story, I just did that story and I just did events to, if I saw that it was too high of a level, I just did other things.
Right, and that was natural, right? You didn't feel like you were
Yes.
kind of like restricted. You were just
An
saying,
indie
"Oh,
game,
this
buddy.
is too hard. I'm going to explore this area for a little while." And there is so much exploration. You don't need to grind in Guild Wars 2. You can go
Exactly.
exploring, but the fact that
Yeah,
the
it's
story
not a
is
grind.
gated makes it seem like you have to grind because it's not your choice.
Well, they also make it so that you have to be whatever the level gate is. It's a higher level than what the last story step in that gate would be. So
Yep.
they basically make it so you can play straight through it without running into any kind of level problem. But then, of course, that creates an issue because if you were playing through the story progressively, you would get experience from the story. So you'd be leveling up while you're doing it. So instead, now they've artificially created a gap where you have to get to that level, which then in turn, even if you don't really have to grind because you can just do events and stuff, it really feels that way because you're not progressively doing it. You're doing it to get access to something. And you end up, if somebody knows in chat, I'm pretty sure you end up being level 80 before you finish the story anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Feels weird.
Which I think along the way with the amount of tomes of knowledge and writs of experience you get as you go, I think it does end up that way. It may not be natural otherwise, but I think just with the amount that you kind of get, periodically, I think you do. But that is interesting to wonder because that's different. I would like to say, Buddy hit something that I feel like an entire podcast could be on, and I would love to discuss that. Sort of like this game and all modern games, fear of exposing the player to failure of any kind is sort of like a departure from what games used to be. And I think that's why a lot of players, I think like the masses sort of forced games to become that. And yet there's a latent desire for failure and risk that people are drawn to, which is why my entire friends list is playing Elden Ring right now.
Yeah.
Because that is still there. People want it. And it's so rare these days to find a game that is like, you know what? You got to work for this and you're probably going to fail a lot. You know what I mean? Like that's an element of gaming that I think has changed for the worse over time. But I don't want to get too off topic. I do want to say...
this is kind of going off topic with that, but what is it, Final Fantasy or Lost Ark or something, where you have, if you do attempt an instance that's too hard, and then when you try again, there's like a pop-up and it says you can either
the Echo.
do it.
That's Final Fantasy.
Well, right, and you can either do it at like the normal level, or you can do it at an easier level. So it's like kind of your choice. So if somebody's really stuck and they don't have to deal with it, they can do it at a lower difficulty level. I thought that was actually a really good way to kind of give both sides what they want.
Yeah. True.
I think so. Yeah,
but it's true in like all things. There's so many things.
Should there be veteran incentives for people to switch to Steam?
Oh, yes.
How is that going to work? Like switch to Steam?
I would be surprised if there wasn't some sort of thing, but it's probably going to be on the lines of like sign up for our SMS dual, authorization thing where you get a little silly mini. My guess is that's it. It's probably going to be that.
You didn't like that Dragon Mini?
I don't have it still.
Oh my God.
Every time I log into Guild Wars 2 for the last 9 years, it's tried to get me to do that, and I haven't done it yet. Maybe that's why I'm not a net partner. they're just furious at me for never signing up for their authentication.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly
I just want to say that in terms of Steam, I want to give them credit because I spent a long time frustrated with their lack of release on Steam. I thought that was going to be a big boost when there was a dip, right? That was when ArenaNet was going through its hardest time. I felt like that would have been a good exposure for the game. When there was no new content, I felt like that might have helped. Then I thought about the fact that they were coming out with new content. I thought, well, if you're going to do that, let's double boost that content with the exposure on Steam at the same time. And then they didn't do that. And I was like, WTF. But finally, again, we come back to the big change, which is communication, right? A single sentence from these guys. We're like, hey, and I loved hearing this. It was such a normal thing to say. It was such a personable discussion thing to say. They were like, hey guys, the truth is we can only release on Steam once. It's got to be a big deal. And they exposed it for what it really is. They're treating it as a draw to get brand new players into the game, which Guild Wars has famously had a hard time with. They had all their players from the beginning, and they ebb and flow. They leave, they come back, they leave, they come back. Getting brand new faces in this game is hard. I think, like I joke a lot, but the last time that happened was when Blessed Online failed so hard, and then Lazy Peon made his post about being super pissed about Blessed, and he's going back to Guild Wars 2. And then we got like a huge influx of new players in Guild Wars 2. That is really the last time that we saw that kind of happen. And to desire to clean up the new player experience and add season 1, close that gap, polish everything at the beginning, and then expose new players to it on Steam. I mean, it's been 2 years, right? Or like since November 2020. And now I finally see where they're going with it. And I agree with it. And really like that they talked to us about it. So for me, 5 stars. I'm very, very excited.
Do you think there's actually a large community, untapped player base in Steam that that is going to be joining us when it gets released?
I do. I think at least for a bit they will, because they do that when they add something to Steam. Like Steam promotes it for them. I think that we will get some people who do only all of the gaming that they ever do through Steam, and there's a whole contingent of people that are that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there just aren't that many people that know about Guild Wars 2. Like, there's a lot of people that just don't know, or have heard about it once and it's just not on their radar. If it's stuck in front of them on a platform that they already use, they're going to look at it.
And we have some streamers in here. So Empress, Dewey, Enko, do you guys have the same experience that I do? When I am playing Guild Wars 2, every once in a while I get that new player in there that goes, "Hey, what game is this?" And I'm like, it's Guild Wars 2. And they're like, "Guild Wars 2? I thought that game was dead. I thought that this game's still around." I'm like, "Yes, not only is it still around, it's awesome. Like, come play this game." Or somebody goes, "I've never even heard of Guild Wars 2. I'm a WoW player. That's never even crossed my radar. I have no idea what you're talking about." And it's like, it's so sad. So like any exposure has got to be great exposure, right? So like Steam, I'm hoping, I'm hoping it goes well.
It's because they keep putting out these ads that are targeted to players that already play.
Yes.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have seen the. I think I showed it.
Yes,
to
Empress.
The ad.
Exactly.
New Kaineng, Guild Wars 2. They did an expansion. I could probably find the link somewhere. But they did for the expansion. They did an ad. I think it was on Instagram or something. But they did an ad that was showing New Kaineng, and obviously it looks completely basically false advertising. It looks like.
Where's that post?
Yeah,
Hold on.
It looks like Neon Dynasty. It's probably in PMs to you. It looks like Neon Dynasty from Kawigama Neon Dynasty from Magic the Gathering, which is what we all hoped. Which is what we all hoped it would be. Yes, like that. There you go.
I have a whole box of it.
He's got the whole box. That's what we all hoped. I feel like that's a whole other discussion. What we hoped New Kaineng would be. But
there it is.
from that,
I found it. I posted it.
Yes,
there it is.
There we go.
Click that.
When you click on this image, aside from the fact that this is basically false advertising, apparently this is obviously a screenshot, but if you were to click on that buy now thing, what it would do is it would take you to the Guild Wars, to the End of Dragons, average or page. If you just type in Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons, and you get to, I can put the link in chat here.
Buddy, right, dude? If you saw that and then you saw like the gray cement depression that is actually Kaineng, would that not disappoint you? I guess for me, I hadn't seen that, so I didn't have that big letdown. But man, I wish it looked like that. Like Anko's right, it looks cyberpunk as heck, man. Like that would have been so sick. I would have loved that. Loved it.
So I believe it just takes you to a similar version to this page. I can't find the exact one. They have like 3 or 4 End of Dragons buy now pages, which is weird. But it takes you to the one that's similar to this, and it's a little more minimalist than this, but it's pretty similar. And so if you were to click that buy now, you'd come to this. Nowhere on here, on that advertisement or on here, does it say that this is an MMO. Like this looks like a single player RPG or something like that with and it doesn't even say you need the base game. It doesn't say if this comes with the base game. It just says Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. That's it.
On a trying to be positive note, just from a web development standpoint, they are so good at making sites, man. These are gorgeous, and the animations are the flow. Just from like a critical standpoint, Junie, this is what she does for a living, by the way.
It's true. It's really
she's
beautiful.
a web developer, and these are so good. Did you guys remember the guy who came up with a fake one of these?
Yes,
yeah.
For the underwater combat or whatever.
With those I forget what they're called from or.
And it was
fish
gorgeous.
Type people. It was gorgeous,
hidden in the HTML was a note that says "Hire me, ANET," and it was the most big brain thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was so good.
Yeah. This is also what I do for a living as well. So yay, me and Junie.
Yes, and Cryptic. I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry.
I watch Junie do it every day.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I really do think that, this is an amazing website. I just,
I see. I know what you mean, though. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, like the person that made this website isn't the one that determined what went on here. Some advertiser, market person at ArenaNet determined it, and they somehow left off that this is an MMO. I know. So yeah, I mean, I think that ArenaNet. We've talked about their advertising problems before. Going forward with Steam and the Steam release, they really need to nail it. They really need.
I agree.
To sell the fact that this is an MMO. That it is an open world, somewhat as MMOs are, cooperative experience, and there are all these different aspects of it. There's raiding, there's fractals, there's PvP, there's World v World. How many games have World v World?
It is the iconic theme park MMO. It's the most theme park MMO of any MMO I've ever seen in my life, which is that there's all these different rides and you don't have to ride any of them that you don't want to. You get to just ride the rides you want to ride. And this game is so good at that. They should advertise the elements that are really good about this game.
And I think along that vein, they also need to add more for guild stuff, right? Like I feel like there isn't enough. There are things for guilds to do, but there isn't enough like content for guilds. You know what I mean? Like it is guilds right now are very much make your own adventure kind of thing.
No GVG, and really the only thing that you do initially is pool resources together for your guild hall and capture the guild hall in the first place. Although I have to say, capturing the guild hall was freaking fun. That was my favorite capture of any capture I've ever seen.
Well, they changed it, right? Like it is much different now. It always used to be in old guild hall captures where you had to have a certain amount of people and you had to go to different locations. But this time you got to stay all together and just kind of move as a group, as a guild. And I think it was a lot more fun than the old ones used to be. Yeah.
And they were like strike missions, dude. They were like strikes. It was weird. It was a guild strike.
They were. I think I had a lot of fun capturing. Me and Phoenix captured one. I had a lot of fun. I will say that it is funny. You can tell the mechanics were designed for like 10 plus people. Because me and her just did it, and like I kept getting the same mechanic on me like 20 times in a row. It was the one where the guy like puts like a laser on you and he's like firing his right, and I never even got to hit the boss. I was just running around the whole time like
We had what did we have, like 15, 20 people, something like
that. That's the sweet spot.
That's it was perfect, man. It was so much fun. I mean,
that's what it's designed for. We were obviously doing something we shouldn't have been doing.
SM Fox says, why the heck would they have guild content in Guild Wars 2? It's funny, if you go back in the history of, I don't know if Azure is still here, but my understanding is that the Guild Wars was like an event in the history of Tyria that was not even at the time of Guild Wars 1 and is probably one of the more minor events to ever happen in the history of the world of Tyria. So it's such a weird thing that they do that. Or they named it that.
It's going to rename this game to Dragon Wars 2 Endless Dragons.
Oh, God. Or the next expansion is called The Guild Wars, and then there's Guild Wars. Wouldn't that be exciting?
That would be.
Okay, guys, we have to wrap this up. We're 2.5 hours. We're an hour past what we usually hope for coffee break. It's so easy to keep going because there's so many things to talk about. World of Tyria Dragon Bash is doing. I'm down for that too. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate everyone tuning in for this. This is something that we do absolutely every single week. So if you guys enjoyed the discussion, hopefully you'll join us next time. Like I said, it's reliable. We talk usually about all MMOs and sort of like compare and contrast, discuss, but there's so much going on in Guild Wars 2 that we're just kind of talking about Guild Wars 2 a lot and playing Guild Wars 2 a lot. Speaking of that, if you would like to join our guild, we do have a Guild Wars 2 guild. And if you come and join the Discord, we would love to have you. This is where we discuss the topics of Coffee Break beforehand. Everyone that's in the Discord knows what the topic is going to be. We sort of discuss it throughout the week. You can give your input and we add that to the spreadsheet. It affects the discussion topics that we have in chat. So we would love to have you guys join. Also, please stop by our Ko-Fi page. That is the best way to support the stream. It really is very helpful. And there are a lot of diabolical things that Junie has made in those tiers. Even if you have no interest in subscribing, please go check out the tiers. You will laugh out loud. I promise. They're evil. Hopefully Cryptic will start streaming sometime soon. Cryptic?
Yeah. Sometime soon. Yes.
The enthusiasm was solid. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Let's go.
Yes, I totally am. In fact, I'm going to start streaming right now. I'm going to go. You can raid me. I also want to give a shout out to Phoenix, our ghostwriter, who helps us stay organized in the topic discussion. It's very nice. And let me switch to this screen. Actually, let's start the raid. Don't go anywhere, please, guys, because we're gonna go and do something crazy. I'm gonna raid my barber.
Wait,
just today. Oh, what?
Mustache. I thought we were getting a mustache.
What mustache? I don't know what you're talking about.
No, okay.
No, there's no mustache.
Okay.
I literally went to my barber today to get a haircut before the stream, and I was sitting there after I got the haircut, and there was this big ring light over a chair, like you would see for a streamer, and I was like, I stream, and that just really reminds me of like a streamer light setup. He goes, "You stream?" I'm like, "Yeah, I stream." He goes, "On Twitch?" I'm like, "Yeah, I stream on Twitch." He goes, "Yeah, I stream on Twitch too." I was like, "You gotta be kidding me. My barber streams on Twitch." He goes, "Yeah, I play PUBG." And I was like, "I'll follow him." He's like, "I'll follow you." So we had this really weird, hilarious exchange. Narsin with the tier 3 sub at the end of the stream. Dude, I love you, bro.
And the amazing emote.
Oh,
Yay.
Narsin.
Yay, Narsin.
Narsin, thank you so much for the sub, and thank you for helping set up the raid the other day with 6MB. That was really helpful. I'm sorry if it was a little shenanigans, but totally awesome. So my barber, actually, we exchanged follows just 3 hours ago, and he hopped in the chat earlier just before he started his stream. So we're going to go raid him, and it's going to be hilarious. So please drop my barber a follow. Maybe he'll give me an extra sweet haircut next time. You never know. I know he's playing PUBG, but, go show some love. Let's end with the end stream. You can see the big Merrick TV. I want to thank everyone again for hanging out. We really appreciate you guys. It means a lot to the community. I hope you will be a part of it going forward. I want to thank our Ko-Fi supporters, No Point Origin, Maddox, Plays Edgy Badly, Art in Fact, Dalindra, Zhang, and of course, Andy Sean, who's responsible for so much of the quality we have on stream. You guys are amazing, beautiful human beings. Let's go raid Perfect ZTV. Perfect ZTV. And wait, you have to type raid too?
Is it working?
Wait, yes it is. There we go.
Oh my god, this is so cool.
All right, guys, let's get some big hype in the chat for my barber, especially if you like my haircut.
He's also another TV, so he's in the TV family.
Oh, he is another TV. Look at that.
All right, I love you guys so much. We'll be back on Monday with raids. If you want to join our Discord and sign up for our training raids, the signups are up right now, so go ahead and join the Discord. Sign up. We do training raids every Monday. We do advanced raids on Thursday. Hopefully, we'll see you there for that. Love you guys. See you next time.
Bye.